The woman who wouldn't leave Qiyu's beauty could be described as extreme, and to Ling Chen, only Sha Sha's looks were superior. Apart from Sha Sha, there was no one else who could even compare to Qiyu. Not even Meng Xian, Ying Shui, or Diao Wu, who are peerless beauties, could compare to her. Moreover, the witch-like seductiveness that came from her was something that not even all of the other women Ling Chen had ever met added together could compare to. She definitely didn't possess the elegant and dignified beauty that Meng Xian had, nor that cold, inviolable beauty that Ying Shui possessed, nor was it the incredibly tender and cute beauty that Sha Sha possessed. When looking at Qiyu, any man would immediately think of a bed. They would want to push her down on a bed and ferociously conquer her, without any foreplay. Just like before, Ling Chen exerted incredible willpower to drag his gaze away from Qiyu and gritted his teeth as he tried to settle his heart. "Didn't I tell you many times before that without my permission you're not to come out?" Every time Qiyu came out was a disaster to Ling Chen. He needed to use all of his self-control to resist the flood-like madness within him. Although she existed as a soul, that was only to other people. To Ling Chen, she was incredibly real. He could see her and touch her just like with Ling Er. Seeing how flustered Ling Chen looked, Qiyu smiled bewitchingly as she looked at him with her misty, upturned eyes. Her gaze was incredibly sultry, looking extremely flirtatious. Her pink lips gently parted as she spoke softly. "I've always been very obedient to Little Master, and I have never come out casually. It's just that something so incomprehensible has happened to Little Master, and I want to help Little Master solve it. Could it be that Little Master doesn't want this? What do you want to do?" Ling Chen deeply breathed in, regulating his breathing. Images of him ripping apart Qiyu's clothes, as well as dominating her, repeatedly flashed within his mind. In that regard, Ling Chen wasn't a gentleman at all. Even he couldn't keep count of how many women he had slept with before. However, even if it was just Qiyu, he couldn't sleep with her. With his powerful mental energy as well as the senses he had honed from walking along the boundaries of death countless times, he not only felt a sense of seductiveness and beauty from Qiyu, but also a sense of danger. The more time he spent with her, the deeper this feeling became. Although Qiyu had been with him all this time and helped him, called him Little Master, and even occasionally tried to seduce him, he had never let down his guard towards her. He felt that if he truly gave in to her charms, he might never be able to extricate himself from her. Ling Chen never doubted his intuition. "It's very simple." Qiyu smiled as she slowly walked towards Ling Chen, her hips swaying as a faint fragrance wafted off of her body. Her pink, glossy hand stretched out towards Ling Chen as she lightly laughed. "As long as Little Master holds my hand and logs off, if you succeed, I'll be able to see if I can find a reason. If it's because of the lunar scourge, as the soul possessing it, I'll be able to detect something. Isn't that a good idea? Could it be that you've forgotten that you're a soul without a body?" Ling Chen asked. "That's not the same," Qiyu smiled. "In front of Little Master, aren't I a perfectly whole woman? Moreover, the lunar scourge's power might surpass what you expect. If it can bring characters from this virtual world into your world, what can it do? But what if they actually succeeded, bringing this incredibly strange and dangerous woman into the real world? What if something with unimaginable consequences happened? Such as? Terrible thoughts flashed through Ling Chen's mind when his hand was suddenly gripped by an incredibly soft and smooth hand. Qiyu had taken the initiative to hold his hand as her eyes narrowed while she smiled. Could it be that Little Master doesn't want to know the truth? Taking someone from the virtual world into your own world, how incredible is that? If I can try it out, maybe we can really get to the bottom of this." This was the first time Ling Chen had touched Qiyu's hand, and by just having his hand held by hers, Ling Chen's heart trembled, and his ability to think was greatly affected. Slowly, his desire to find the answer took control as he spoke with great difficulty. All right. He held on to Chiyu's hand as he logged off. The world in front of them changed, and Ling Chen immediately opened his eyes. When he saw the seductive figure next to him, he stood up from the sofa with a whoosh as he stared at her in a daze. As he logged off, he had hoped that it would fail. After all, Qi wasn't a physical being but rather a soul that possessed the lunar scourge. She only seemed corporeal to him. However, this shocking scene once again presented itself. When he returned to the real world, he immediately saw Qiyu. She was standing in front of him, wearing that black muslin dress. She gave off a fragrant smell and looked incredibly sexy. Compared to Ling Chen, she was incredibly calm, and she didn't seem nervous at all in Ling Chen's home. After all, she had been here with her a part of her soul before and experienced this world with Ling Chen's senses. Bringing Sha into the real world, then Kair, and now even Qiyu, who was a soul in the lunar scourge, was here. What was going on? Was the entire universe mad? Looks like you succeeded, Qiyu said in a soft voice as her eyes swept around her surroundings. The world little master lives in is quite worrisome. Not only is the elemental essence here not very active or dense, but there are also masses of germs, viruses, and suspended matter in the air. There are more than 3,000 viruses and 150,000 types of germs. In such an environment, living to become 100 years old can be considered a miracle. The lifespan of those in the mystic moon world were quite long, and they ordinarily live for 300 to 400 years. For people like Xiaofeng Chen and Taoist Tian Qing, who far surpassed everyone else, they could live for a few millennia. Comparatively speaking, humans on Earth only lived for 80 or so years, which was much less. Qiyu was standing right in front of him, and adding on how thin and tight her clothes were, if Ling Chen slightly looked down, he would be able to see her deep, snow-white cleavage. If he looked, he would instantly think of the marvelous feeling of grabbing onto them. They were incredibly soft, bouncy, and simply just wonderful. Ling Chen's heart rate sped up as his mouth dried up, and even his breathing became rough. Very soon, his lower body reacted as well. This demoness! Ling Chen gritted his teeth as he desperately looked away, almost biting his tongue. Qiyu's body moved as she elegantly sat on the sofa beside Ling Chen. As she bent over, she revealed an extremely bewitching figure, enough to make anyone to cough up blood. Her long and slim fingers picked up a strawberry on the coffee table and gently bit into it as the sweet juice filled her mouth. Earth's fruits aren't bad. As for the reason we were talking about, I already said that for something so strange to happen, the lunar scourge is the only explanation. If even I can appear here, there are no other possibilities. Qiyu's answer was extremely vague and almost didn't count as an answer. Ling Chen didn't pursue this matter further and lowered his head as he muttered to himself. Could it really be because of the lunar scourge? However, this meant that the mystic moon world wasn't simply a virtual game, it was an actual world. If it wasn't an actual world, how could he bring people from the mystic moon world here? However, the mystic moon world was clearly a virtual game. It had the settings of a game, the rules of a game, the professions of a game, and the residents of a game, as well as different types of characters, monsters, quests, and maps. Everything was for the players, so how could it be a real world? Just what was going on? Ling Chen? Wow. What a pretty big sister. Shadisika ran over from the kitchen, her large, crystal-like eyes fixed on Qiyu. Although she was a young girl, she was deeply attracted by Qiyu's beauty and seductiveness. She smiled as she spoke to Qiyu. Hello, pretty big sister. I'm called Sha. Were you also brought out by Ling Chen from that world? Ling Chen. So you're called Sha? What an incredibly likable and angelic girl. I'm called Qiyu, though you can call me Big Sister Beauty. Qiyu stretched out her hand and held Shadisika's small hand. Anyone who saw Shadisika would feel a sense of shock and affection, and Chiyu was no exception. This was her first time seeing and speaking to Shadisika, and there was no way to fake the trembling in her eyes. Wait! Ling Chen suddenly realized something as he spoke. Sha, you can see her? Chiyu is a soul and therefore didn't have her own body. She was just an image. The only one who could see her and touch her was the master of the lunar scourge. However, Sha had evidently seen her and greeted her. Big Sister Beauty is right here. Of course I can see her. Shadisika looked at Ling Chen with confusion. But Ling Chen looked at Chiyu with confusion. Chiyu laughed as she picked up another strawberry and placed it in Sha's hands as she smiled. Hasn't little master realized that, after bringing me to this world, I'm not just an incorporeal being anymore? What's going on? Ling Chen asked. I don't know. Chiyu shook her head. If I knew that, I would have regained a physical body a long time ago. However, I can roughly guess. This is a miracle that little master and the lunar scourge have created for me. Chiyu's smile bloomed like a flower, her ample and perky chest rippling as she breathed. Her snow-white body, as well as her seductive figure, looked incomparably enchanting. As her lips opened and closed, they gave off a light fragrance. Miracle? Miracle my ass! Looking at how calm and composed you look, I would rather believe that a sow could rape a dragon. Ling Chen knew that this incredibly devious woman wouldn't tell him the true reason even if he kneeled down and kowtowed to her. He could only inwardly curse as he stretched out his hand towards her. All right, since we've found the reason, I should take you back. Go back? Hee. Chiyu's eyes looked around as she laughed mischievously. She didn't take Ling Chen's hand, but instead wrapped her arms around her proud chest. This is the first time I've come to be a guest at Little Master's home. Can Little Master really bear to chase me away so soon? Doesn't Little Master feel that in such a big home Little Master is missing a female slave to serve Little Master? I'm sure I can take that role. The truth, what Ling Chen was worried about the most had happened. When Chiyu sat down with a look that said she wasn't going to go back, Ling Chen nearly jumped up and down in frustration. Bringing a character from the virtual world into the real world was something that defied all logic, reason, and science. It was simply a heaven-defying act. When this sort of thing happens right in front of him, it causes an unimaginable chain reaction. If he had only brought Sha here, after recovering from his shock, he would have been quite happy because Sha was simply too likable. Moreover, apart from him, she had no one to rely on and wouldn't make things complicated. If it was just Kair, he would have accepted it too. Kair was a pure-hearted fairy, and although her presence in the real world would be quite shocking, she wouldn't cause any trouble for him. However, Chiyu was completely different. She was an item soul in the virtual world, and if she entered into his life in the real world, Ling Chen was certain that it was only a matter of time until his current life would be completely messed up. Ling Chen definitely couldn't allow this. No! You need to immediately return. This isn't somewhere you should stay, Ling Chen said. Chiyu didn't seem to mind Ling Chen's reaction at all. Instead, she looked at him bewitchingly. Little Master, don't be so shy. Just like in the game, I'll be obedient to Little Master and won't bother Little Master when he makes love with his lovers. Email protected, $%. Alright, if you're so obedient, then go back to the game with me, Ling Chen coldly said as he stretched out his hand. Chiyu looked quite hurt as she gazed at Ling Chen, her eyes looking extremely wronged. I've been with Little Master for so long that I thought that Little Master's feelings towards me had grown. Who would have thought that Little Master would despise me and chase me away? Ling Chen was expressionless. Like hell, I believe you felt so pitiful. Since Little Master is in a hurry to chase me away, I won't be so thick-skinned as to stay here. Qiyu said, as she extended her snow-white hand towards Ling Chen. This action caused Ling Chen to stare in shock. From what he knew about Qiyu's personality, if she decided to stay here, even a god would be able to do nothing about it. She shouldn't have given in so easily. Ling Chen suspiciously took her hand as she continued to talk. Before, I wanted to tell Little Master the truth about poor little sister Shui, but since Little Master hates me so much, I'll just leave as soon as possible. Ling Chen's body froze as his pupils expanded and contracted. He then suddenly took a step back as he stared into Qiyu's eyes, his breathing becoming increasingly ragged. The truth about Ru? What truth? What do you mean? Qiyu waved her hand in front of Ling Chen as she said, Little Master always thought that poor little sister Shui was killed by the Long family's people. However, that's not the case. Her body was taken away by me, so I naturally know how she lost her life. In actuality, it had nothing to do with the Long family. They were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Could it be that Little Master has never had his suspicions in the past? Shui died in Little Master's arms, so you should be able to remember her condition. If it was because of the Long family, why did she have no injuries on her body at all? It wasn't the Long family. Qiyu's words banged on Ling Chen's heart, causing it to wildly tremble as his vision became distorted. Just like Qiyu had said, he had been suspicious about Shuirua's death because she had indeed seemed uninjured. Even her clothes were perfectly fine. However, the shock of losing Shuirua made him go mad, and he unleashed all of his rage on the Long family. Afterwards, he tried not to think about Shuirua's death. If it wasn't the Long family, why would Shuirua just leave like that? She had been completely fine before that. Although Ling Chen tried to stay calm, his voice became incredibly emotional. He was unable to remain calm when talking about Shuirua. Then tell me, if it wasn't the Long family, how did Shuirua die? Why didn't you tell me before? Because Little Master never asked. Qiyu said in a small voice. Then I'm asking you now. Qiyu didn't reply. She straightened her back, causing her ample chest to bounce up and down as her bewitching eyes looked at Ling Chen and smiled. If you allow me to stay here and serve Little Master, and you don't chase me away, I'll tell Little Master after 1 month. You? Qiyu smiled incredibly charmingly and casually cut Ling Chen off. If Little Master is determined to chase me away, then I'll forget everything I know about this out of sadness. I might not be able to remember it during my lifetime. Oh, right. I forgot to tell Little Master. If Little Master doesn't know why little sister Shuirua died that night, even if Little Master revives her, she could die at any time after that. Ling Chen's expression froze as he stared at Qiyu, unable to say anything. His heart and mind were filled with only one question. It wasn't the Long family, not the Long family. Then what was the reason? What was the reason? Could it be that something or someone else had caused Shuirua's death? The last sentence that Qiyu said evidently hit Ling Chen hard. If he didn't know the reason for her death, even if he brought her back, she could die at any moment again. Although Ling Chen desperately did not want Qiyu to stay, he had no way to refuse. After settling the internal conflict within himself, he deeply breathed in as he slowly spoke. All right, if you want to stay, you can stay. I just hope that you won't do anything out of order. After a month, you must tell me everything you know about Shuirua's situation. I've never broken a promise to Little Master. Qiyu, whose wish had been fulfilled, grinned as she looked at him, looking quite coquettish and amorous, making Ling Chen's temperature rise. She stood up as she spoke in a soft and gentle tone. Don't worry, I've always been Little Master's obedient little slave. I will only serve Little Master. I definitely won't do anything Little Master doesn't want me to do. I'm going to clean my room, the one to the left of Little Master's room. I'll do it myself. Ling Chen was completely speechless as he watched Qiyu walk while swaying her hips towards that room. Ling Chen was not surprised at all that she had chosen that room. From what she said, she had experienced this world through Ling Chen's senses. Therefore, she had long since become acquainted with this house. Moreover, all of these rooms were already furnished and cleaned and didn't need any cleaning at all. The moment Chi Yu turned around, Shadisika's gaze fell onto her back as she stared at her. Deep within her eyes, a white light flashed. Ling Chen sat down, his mind filled with the exchange he just had with Chi Yu. Evidently, Chi Yu had known the truth from the start, but she did not tell him. Even if he revived Shui Rua, she would die again. However, despite the fact that such a long time had passed, she had said nothing to him, only to use it as a condition for her staying. Moreover, she didn't tell him everything, not even half. Just how many plots and secrets was this woman hiding? Ling Chen had no idea. Ling Chen. Shadisika looked away from Chi Yu and called out Ling Chen's name. She walked to his side as she said in a small voice, "That pretty big sister seems to like you a lot." Ling Chen looked up at the pure girl as he asked, "Why do you say that?" "Because she was very determined to stay by your side, and said that she would be obedient," Shadisika replied as she looked at him with her pure eyes. Ling Chen stroked Shadisika's snow-white face as he smiled in amusement. "She'll like Sha Sha more." "Who told Sha Sha to be so cute and likable?" "He." Shadisika happily laughed. At that moment, the kitchen door, which had been tightly closed, was opened. Tian poked her head out as she happily called out, "Big brother, Sha Sha, you can eat now. Come and help, eh?" Apart from Ling Chen and Shadisika, she saw an unfamiliar face. That person was smiling at her, and was the manifestation of what it meant to charm someone. Her figure was the manifestation of a real woman, and her face was the manifestation of perfect beauty. "So pretty." Tian spaced out as she spoke, almost forgetting what she was doing. Ling Chen didn't feel surprised upon seeing Tian's reaction. This was something that made him feel quite frustrated. No matter if it was Chi Yu's appearance, figure, or the enchanting air around her, even a girl like Tian was completely mesmerized by her. If it was a man, one could only imagine the consequences. "Is little sister complimenting me?" Chi Yu, who was going to her room, smiled as she walked back, giving off a seductive fragrance. Tian nodded her head as she stared at Chi Yu, the prettiest woman she had ever seen in her entire life. "Big sister so pretty, but why are you here? Are you Big Brother's guest? You're also very pretty. After you grow up, you'll definitely be prettier than Big Sister." Chi Yu came over to Tian and bent down. As she did this, her large, snow-white chest swayed as her slim waist formed a perfect figure. "You must be little Tian. I'm called Chi Yu, your big brother's little slave. I came from the same place as little sister Sha Sha." "Little slave?" Tian repeated this, feeling quite confused before smiling brilliantly. "So you also met Big Brother in the game? Did he also tell you to come here?" "That's right." Chi Yu smiled as she replied. "Oh." Tian nodded her head and looked at Ling Chen before looking at Chi Yu unblinkingly. "Looks like Big Brother likes you a lot. Otherwise, he wouldn't have told you to come find us here. It's no wonder. Since Big Sister is so pretty, Big Brother definitely loves you to death. By the way, is Big Sister going to stay here for a while?" "That's right. Am I welcome?" Chi Yu's smile became more affectionate. "As long as Big Brother is willing, of course I'd welcome you," Tian replied as she smiled. Just like that, Tian was also won over by Chi Yu. This demoness, who contained countless secrets, had successfully entered Ling Chen's world. This allowed her to take a step closer to her ultimate goal. A different night with 2 extra people in the house. Even the feeling that the evening brought was different. An extra demoness-like beauty, who continuously acted flirtatiously, was something that any man would want. However, if this sort of woman could only be looked at and not touched, after satisfying their eyes, one would feel immense torture. This was the first time Ling Chen had experienced this. When Qi walked out of the bath, with only a towel covering her breasts and bottom, Ling Chen lost control of his eyes. That messy and damp hair, those thin eyebrows, the partially opened lips, the crystal-like skin, slim and long legs, and perfectly round ankles. Even a goddess from the 9 heavens would be completely outclassed by her. Moreover, Qi did not seem embarrassed at all to be exposed like this in front of a man. Her watery eyes were narrowed, looking incredibly bewitching as she smiled. Her hand traveled down from her hips, moving over her body, as if she was enjoying feeling how soft and supple her body was. Upon seeing Ling Chen stare, Qi seductively raised her hand and tucked some hair behind her ear as she teasingly looked at Ling Chen, speaking in a tempting voice. "Little master, do you like looking at my body?" Ling Chen's body temperature skyrocketed as his entire face became red. The instant Qi voice sounded out, he felt something slide out of his nose, and he subconsciously lifted his hand. "Ah! Big brother, you're bleeding from your nose." Before Tian could bring over tissues, Ling Chen had run off as the demoness's charming laugh sounded out from behind him. After taking care of his nosebleed, Ling Chen almost felt like crying. He had seen many different types of women in his life, but this was the first time he had a nosebleed in front of a woman. He felt incredibly embarrassed. The only comfort he had was that Tian and Sha didn't know what it meant for a man to have a nosebleed in front of a woman. At least, that was what he thought. Qi was sleeping in the room to the left of his. It was her first night on Earth, and Ling Chen wondered what her state of mind and emotions would be like. As for Shidisika, when she hesitantly asked Ling Chen if she could sleep together with him with a look of hope in her eyes, Ling Chen and Tian had been insta-killed. Tian remembered the first night she had joined Ling Chen and Shui, and she had also used this sort of pleading look to ask Shui something similar. As such, she unhesitatingly asked Ling Chen to allow Shidisika to sleep with them. She took on Shui role from back then, and she did her best to be as warm and gentle as Shui had been. Even now, Tian would sometimes call out Big Sister in her dreams, which was often accompanied by 2 streams of tears. When they slept, Ling Chen was in the middle, Tian was on the outside, and Shidisika was on the inside. They both stuck closely to Ling Chen, sleeping peacefully. Ling Chen silently lay there, as he stared at the ceiling through the dim moonlight from outside, unable to fall asleep. His mind replayed everything that had happened today, the future of the new city, what he should do about Shidisika, and the things Qi had said. Even when it was nearly dawn, he still was not sleepy, so he closed his eyes and entered the virtual world. At that moment, Shidisika, who had been sleeping, quietly opened her eyes. She looked at the sleeping Ling Chen as well as Tian and arose from the bed. She put on her slippers and silently opened the door as she walked out. After walking out to the living room, she immediately saw a figure standing on the balcony. Shidisika gave a soft "ee" as she hesitantly called out, "Is that Big Sister Qi? Little Sha, why aren't you asleep yet?" Qi turned around as she smiled and asked, "I'm going to the bathroom. Why is Big Sister Qi here? Aren't you going to sleep?" Shidisika walked over and stood next to Qi, looking up at the full moon hanging in the night sky. Qi also looked up towards the full moon. "Because you can see the moon here at night, and it's a full moon, so I wanted to look for a bit longer." "That's right, it's very pretty." Shidisika looked up at the round moon in the sky, looking slightly infatuated. A strange light danced in her eyes as she said in a small voice, "So this is the moon?" "That's right, there's no moon in the other world," Qi said as she smiled. Shadisika turned to look at Chiyu as she asked in curiosity. Big sister, you were brought out from the game by Ling Chen, just like me, right? Yes. Then how did you meet Ling Chen? Shadisika asked. Chiyu's eyes narrowed as she said slowly. I've known Little Master for a long time, much longer than Sha Sha. Precisely speaking, Little Master saved me from a dark place, and I've been with Little Master until now. Wow, Shadisika said. So Big Sister was also someone like me who Ling Chen saved. Then is Big Sister staying by Ling Chen's side to repay him? Of course, Chiyu smiled while replying. Same with me. Shadisika nodded before looking up at the moon, her small hands in front of her chest as she said earnestly, Ling Chen saved me and Big Sister. He's a very, very good person. When he looks at me, his gaze is always very warm and gentle, and being near him makes me feel at ease and very warm. Although I've only been with him for a short period of time, when he was in danger, he brought the danger to himself to keep me safe. To be able to meet Ling Chen after I woke up, I feel extremely blessed. Chiyu looked at her strangely and suddenly smiled as she said with a meaningful tone. Legends say that although the White Phoenix clan's people live in extremely cold and harsh environments, they have an incredibly fiery and passionate heart. They fall in love easily, and once they fall in love, their feelings will not change even in death. Looks like this is completely true. White Phoenix clan. Fall in love? Shadisika blinked as she looked at Chiyu curiously. Big sister, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I'm just talking to myself. Little Sha Sha doesn't need to understand. Shadisika continued to look up at the moon as her gaze seemed to become hazy and said softly, A good person like Ling Chen should be rewarded with the best things and should always possess luck and happiness. He should also have good people around him. Those who harm him, use him, or bear ill will towards him should all receive the cruelest punishments. Chiyu, those who do good will receive good, and those who do evil will receive evil. This is a divine rule that no one can go against, Shadisika said as she looked up at the moon. That way, there will be more and more good people and less bad people, because the good people will be rewarded and the bad people will be punished. As such, we can't be bad people or we'll be punished. Some bad people can never be forgiven. What do you think, Big Sister Chiyu? After lapsing into silence, Chiyu smiled bewitchingly, but the smile seemed somewhat forced. Of course Sha Sha is correct. It's quite late, so Sha Sha should go and sleep. Big Sister is also going to sleep. Okay. Good night, Big Sister. After taking a final glance at the moon, Shadisika cutely smiled towards Chiyu and quietly walked into the bathroom and closed the door. Chiyu did not immediately return to her room. She looked up at the moon, but under the moonlight, her eyes seemed quite dim. After a while, her lips moved as she softly spoke. I'm destined to be a bad person. I have no choice. In the bathroom, Shadisika's small frame leaned against the door, her small and tender finger tapping against her lips. The innocent and cute look in her eyes was gone, and was replaced by an incredibly deep look. If you dare to harm him! After entering the game, Ling Chen was called over by the women. He immediately summoned Snow Cherry and flew towards the new city. Ling Tian! Ah! Little bro Ling Tian! Tianya! After arriving at the northern gate of the new city, many voices called out. Ling Chen looked around. Xianyuan Dia Wu, Yunmeng Xian, Li Xiaoshui, Xiao Qi Suer, winter of that year, 100 miles of ice, Chief Dillo, and Chief Greenwood. They seemed to be gathering for a banquet. Big brother Ling Tian, try this. It's a dessert made by the dwarves, and it tastes so good. Xiaoqi rushed over and pulled Ling Chen to sit down. There were tens of plates on the wooden table, filled with a plethora of foods and desserts. Just the sight alone was able to make one feel incredibly joyful, and make their saliva to overflow to the ground. Woo! Woo! I've never even heard of such delicious food. Heavens, this is simply outrageously good! Winter of that year completely disregarded his image, as he hungrily devoured the food. Before he even swallowed what was in his mouth, he would stuff his mouth with something else. That's right, he would force it in. He looked like he was a ghost who had been starved to death. Of course. Ling Chen picked up a cherry flat cake as he smiled and said, Dwarves are not only great architects and engineers, but they are also natural gourmets as well. They love eating delicious food, but they love to cook delicious food more. As long as they have the ingredients, they can make the most delicious food in the world. As Ling Chen spoke, he suddenly remembered something. He looked at Winter that year. Hold on. Didn't that guy say that he lost his smell and taste? Why was he looking like this? That's right. Upon being praised like that, Elder Dita's face glowed red. All of us dwarves have remarkable talent towards food. That's right, we designed a large gourmet plaza so that all humans can taste the gourmet meals made by us dwarves. Ah! Just thinking about it makes my heart become so excited that it's going to jump out. None of our ancestors would have thought such a thing was possible, and that handsome pan was something that countless ancestors had dreamed of possessing. Dita became extremely emotional as he looked at Ling Chen and spoke with immense gratitude. All of this was given to us by you. We will remember your deeds for all the generations to come. If you have any requests, we will do our best to fulfill them. Your enemies will be our entire clan's enemies. Here are the spatial orbs you wanted. They're all completed. Elder Dita took out the spatial orbs and gave them to Ling Chen. So fast? Ling Chen was quite shocked. He counted them and found that there were exactly 500 of them, just as he had requested. Less than half a day had passed since he had passed the spatial stones to Elder Dita, while last time it had taken Dita more than 1 day. But of course, Elder Dita looked quite pleased with himself as he spoke with a red and ruddy face. After coming here, my entire clan's potential has been unlocked. My soul has truly been awakened. Dita's words were filled with overwhelming gratitude towards Ling Chen. Anyone could see that the dwarves now saw Ling Chen as a god and felt wholeheartedly grateful towards him. With a single sentence from Ling Chen, they would dive into flames without even frowning. Also, we only used less than half of the spatial stones. Elder Dita took out the remainder. What do you want to do with the rest? Li Xiaoshui cut in and said, I heard Meng Xian say that these spatial stones can create permanent teleportation channels. In that case, can we link the new city with Azure Dragon City? Of course we can. Elder Dita immediately patted his chest as he replied. With such a large piece of spatial stone, let alone connecting to Azure Dragon City in the east, we can even connect the most extreme points of the entire continent. However, the only problem is that Azure Dragon City is one of the continent's main cities. If we want to set up a teleportation channel there, we need the approval of the mayor. I'll take care of that, Ling Chen said confidently. He was quite familiar with Azure Dragon City's mayor. Back then, he had helped him with some important matters, so it was unlikely that the mayor would refuse. If that's the case, the biggest problem will be easily solved. Li Xiaoshui looked at Ling Chen as she smiled. When the new city is opened, players will be able to directly travel from the Azure Dragon City to the new city without us having to provide teleport scrolls. If we knew about this, we wouldn't have had to rush to make teleport scrolls and waste so much money. Ling Tian, it's great that you're back. After coming back, are you going to leave immediately? Have you found the things you wanted to find? Yuan Meng Xian suddenly asked. What she asked was what everyone was wondering. Everyone turned to look at Ling Chen, waiting for his reply. Not yet. Ling Chen shook his head, then looked at Suer as he smiled. but I found most of them, and all of this was because of Su Su. However, Xiao Shui is right. This new city was created because of me, so I have some responsibility towards it. As such, before the new city is completely settled, I'll be staying here. Of course, even if I wanted to leave, I wouldn't know where to go without Suer's guidance. That's great, Xiaoqi exclaimed. I was worried that you would leave immediately. That's right, big brother Ling Tian. Can you tell us what you're looking for now? I also heard that Su Su joined the Heaven's Secret sect, which can tell one's fate and see the future. Is that true? Ling Chen shook his head and then nodded. I can't tell you what I'm looking for yet. However, with Su Su's help, I'm sure that I'll soon be able to find everything that I'm looking for. When that time comes, you'll know. I was able to succeed time and time again because of Su Su's guidance. She's never been wrong before. It's very mystical. That's right. The Heaven's Secret sect's power is very mystical. Greenwood meaningfully nodded. In our fairy clan, there are records of the Heaven's Secret sect. Although they can't go against the heavens and change one's fate, they can see the heavens' will as well as the heavens' secrets. That was why, back then, there were always countless people looking for the Heaven's Secret sect. They wanted them to reveal the heavens' secrets. They're so powerful? Is that really true? Winter of that year's eyes widened as he continued to madly eat. So awesome! Xiaoqi grabbed Suer's arm and shook it as she said, Su Su, can you take a look at my future then? This? Suer lowered her head as she said in embarrassment. I've only just attained some accomplishments, and my power isn't sufficient. I can only use my power once in a long time, so I can't right now. So it's like that. That's okay. We have lots of time in the future, Xiaoqi said as she giggled. She was most likely joking with Suer. She believed that Suer's ability allowed her to find things in the game, but predicting the future of things outside of the game, how could that be possible? Speaking of the new city, Ling Tian, can you guess just how big the waves of this battle were? Li Xiaoshui asked. I thought that this event would be incredibly shocking to the rest of the world. After all, Qi-Chi's fire incinerated 2 million troops. The Skyfall Dynasty and Battle Alliance defended against the Yin Huan Alliance and many other alliances, and Ling Tian returned and obliterated the remaining attacking forces. Every one of those things were incredibly shocking. However, the results far surpassed anything I expected. That's right, that's right. Xiaoqi also became quite excited. Now, almost the entire world is talking about our new city. An army of more than 10 million players is the largest force we've ever seen in virtual gaming history, and yet we successfully defended against them. Now that I think about it, it's simply unbelievable. Many people captured Qi-Chi's attack before they died, and it's being called the most heaven-defying magic in the history of virtual games. Qi-Chi is also being called the most powerful mage in history by countless players, and was given the title Flame Empress. The Skyfall Dynasty, Battle Alliance, Disillusion Alliance, and my Snow Moon Lolan's fame and reputation have skyrocketed overnight. And there's also you, Ling Tian. Li Xiaoshui looked at Ling Chen in frustration. Of course you would be viewed as the sun in the sky and be praised as a god. I'm sure there's no one who doesn't view you to be on par with Eve. You're now the second boss-level player. Now everyone in the world has their eye on the new city, and almost every player is looking forward to its opening because they want to personally witness the player city that they all thought would be destroyed. On the other hand, the Yin Huan Alliance, Golden Age Alliance, and all of the other guilds that participated in the attack have been completely humiliated and are being mocked by everyone else. They lost immeasurable strength and gold, and they also lost their reputation. It'll take them at least a few years to recover. Adding on that ridiculous display at the end, they completely lost all face. It's impossible for them to attack the new city again within a short period of time, nor will they have time to take revenge against us. During this period of time, perhaps Alliance Master Shao and the 3 heavenly kings will be able to make sufficient preparations. It's a pity that no one recorded that final spectacular scene. Otherwise, the situation would be even more amazing. Flame Empress. Xiao Qi unhappily pouted. Isn't that almost the same as that Flame Emperor? I don't want that title. There's nothing we can do about that. Male sovereigns are called emperors, while female sovereigns are called empresses. That's the highest praise they can give you, Yunming Xian gently said as she smiled. However, in the eyes of every player in the world, you far surpass the Flame Emperor. Although your titles are similar, your position in their hearts is much higher. At that moment, a green light flashed as one of the fairy clan's elders appeared. He spoke in a serious tone. A group of people from the Vermillion Bird City came from the South Gate. The one at the head says he's the Vermillion Bird's mayor, and that he wishes to meet the Vermillion Bird's representative. Vermillion Bird's representative? Everyone looked over to Xiao Qi. This was because Xiao Qi was now inextricably linked to the Vermillion Bird. Even her life was given to her in exchange for the Vermillion Bird's life. Even her profession's name was Vermillion Bird's representative. They're probably looking for me, right? Xiao Qi stood up as she asked in hesitation. Ling Chen immediately thought back to how before the White Tiger had died, it had told the truth of its death to the White Tiger's mayor, who used various methods to reduce the impact of the White Tiger's death on White Tiger City. As the guardian beast of the Vermillion Bird City, the Vermillion Bird wouldn't simply die without any regard to Vermillion Bird City. Perhaps part of its duty, as its power and life, was passed on to Xiao Qi. Qi, let's go and have a look. Ling Chen walked over and took Xiao Qi's hand and summoned Snow Cherry before they flew towards the South Gate. There were some inexplicable secrets regarding this matter, so he only took Xiao Qi and no one else. Snow Cherry's white wings spread out as she flew in the air. This was the second time Xiao Qi had been so close to Ling Chen as they sat on a mount. However, although their frame of mind was completely different, what was the same was that their hearts still beat uncontrollably. Xiao Qi leaned back against Ling Chen's chest as she lowered her head and spoke in a small voice. Big brother Ling Tian. Xiao Qi's incredibly soft and gentle voice almost melted Ling Chen's heart. He softly replied, Big sister Giao Wu really is your wife, right? Xiao Qi asked in a small and hesitant voice. And she always will be, Ling Chen replied as he smiled. You'll love her forever, right? Xiao Qi's eyes slowly dimmed. Forever and ever, Ling Chen resolutely replied. In that case, Xiao Qi slightly raised her head, her eyes hazy as she asked. Then, does our promise still count? The instant Xiao Qi asked that, Ling Chen's communication device received a text from Su'er. Big brother Ling Tian, does our promise still count? The two sisters asked him the exact same question at the exact same time, but they used different methods. Ling Chen's heart pounded. Back then, when he detected it, he had tried to avoid their feelings towards him, because he was afraid of hurting Shui Ruo and them. How could he not like them? However, now he felt more and more that if he let them down, it would be the greatest sin in this world. He replied in a soft but resolute tone. Our promise will forever count. The same words were conveyed to both girls through different means. He could feel Xiao Qi's heart begin to beat faster and faster as she leaned closer to him, a red glow of happiness across her face. Within his heart, Ling Chen could almost see Su'er's lovable and embarrassed manner. Suddenly, he wished he could see how cute and adorable she was. It was great being a man, especially a main character. Vermillion Bird representative, White Tiger's representative. When Ling Chen and Xiao Qi reached the South Gate, they saw 20 to 30 people waiting there for them. They were all riding on large horses that were covered in dust. Evidently, They had suffered a lot to get here as fast as possible. The clothes they wore and the auras they gave off were not ordinary, and the man at the head of the party was tall with crimson hair and eyebrows. He had a fiery crown on his head, and each of his movements were majestic and dignified. Currently, in front of the gate of the new city, they were acting extremely reserved and continuously looked ahead, as if they were hoping to see something. However, they did not recklessly rush in for fear of offending someone. With Xiao Hui's Eye of the Holy Spirit, information about their identities was sent into Ling Chen's mind. These people were indeed from the Vermillion Bird City, and they all held high statuses. The person at the head of the party was the Vermillion Bird's mayor himself. Ling Chen told all of this information to Xiao Qi. "Are you looking for the Vermillion Bird's representative?" Xiao Qi descended as she asked somewhat anxiously. In that instant, the crimson feather that the Vermillion Bird's mayor was holding started to shine with a brilliant light as a clear image of the Vermillion Bird appeared behind Xiao Qi. The eyes of everyone from the Vermillion Bird City widened as they stared at the Vermillion Bird's phantasm behind Xiao Qi. Their expressions changed from one of shock to excitement as their eyes started to water up. The Vermillion Bird's mayor became so excited that his face became bright red. He hurriedly jumped down from his horse and stumbled over to Xiao Qi as he yelled, "Great! Great! The Vermillion Bird's representative really does exist. I knew that the Vermillion Bird wouldn't abandon us. Great, great!" Although Xiao Qi had guessed what was going on, upon seeing their reactions, Xiao Qi became a bit frightened. She weakly said, "These uncles are you?" The Vermillion Bird's mayor quickly and respectfully replied, "We're from the Vermillion Bird City in the south, and we are the Vermillion Bird's most faithful followers. No! Since you've inherited the Vermillion Bird's power and soul, and you are the Vermillion Bird's representative, we'll be your faithful followers from now on. Please use the Vermillion Bird's power to bless our Vermillion Bird City with peace and fortune." "Oh?" Xiao Qi looked to Ling Chen for help, but saw Ling Chen smiling as he nodded. She let out a breath as she replied, "I've indeed inherited the Vermillion Bird's power and soul, and before it left, the Vermillion Bird asked me to protect the Vermillion Bird City. However, I don't know what to do." Xiao Qi's words made the Vermillion Bird's mayor even more excited as he hurriedly replied, "Lady Representative, to be recognized by the Vermillion Bird, I'm sure you have a pure soul and kind heart. You don't need to do much for the Vermillion Bird City. Our Vermillion Bird City is linked to the Vermillion Bird's power and soul. You just need to look after yourself and not let the Vermillion Bird's power and soul dissipate. That'll be enough for the Vermillion Bird City's city lifeline to continue existing. I believe that since the Lady Representative has obtained the Vermillion Bird's power, there will be very few people in the world who can threaten you. We hope that Lady Representative will come to visit the Vermillion Bird City now and then and accept the worship and praise of our residents." Xiao Qi opened her mouth. How is it this simple? She had thought that they would make her do something very troublesome. I understand." Xiao Qi nodded. "The Vermillion Bird has helped me greatly, so I will definitely help protect what it protected. Please don't worry. If the Vermillion Bird City faces trouble someday, I'll definitely do my best to protect it." The Vermillion Bird's mayor bowed and said in extreme gratitude, "On behalf of all of the Vermillion Bird City's residents, thank you, Lady Representative." Xiao Qi never expected that with just a few words these people would become so moved and emotional. After all, she didn't belong to this world and didn't fully understand the position these guardian beasts held in the hearts of the residents they protected. They were not only guardian beasts, but also something that these residents worshipped and placed their hope and trust in. If the guardian beast had died, the residents would feel as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. "Lady Representative, right now, the Vermillion Bird City has fallen into chaos after the death of the Vermillion Bird, and things are extremely unstable. Only if you appear and summon the Vermillion Bird's phantasm will we be able to settle this chaos and save the Vermillion Bird City. Lady Representative, please come with us to the Vermillion Bird City and receive the worship of our residents," the Vermillion Bird's mayor said as he looked at Xiaoqi pleadingly. This, Xiaoqi once again turned to look at Ling Chen. Ling Chen looked at her and sent her a message. "Just agree to it. Our new city is nearly complete, and if we want to strengthen our city, we not only need massive numbers of players, but also NPCs. If you go to the Vermillion Bird City, let the residents know of your existence, and let them know that you'll frequently go to the new city. Many of the residents will also be willing to move to the new city and become residents here. This will be incredibly beneficial to the new city." "All right, I'll come with you," Xiaoqi replied without hesitation. The Vermillion Bird City's mayor and the other people looked delirious with joy, and they respectfully handed Xiaoqi a teleport scroll to the Vermillion Bird City. "Big brother Ling Tian, aren't you coming with me?" Xiaoqi looked at Ling Chen as she asked. Ling Chen shook his head as he smiled. "It's best that you go by yourself. If I went, the Vermillion Bird City's residents would feel quite strange." "All right," Xiaoqi reluctantly said. "Are you the Lady Representative's friend?" "The Lady Representative's friends are all distinguished friends of our Vermillion Bird City. The Vermillion Bird City will welcome you at any time," the Vermillion Bird's mayor said respectfully to Ling Chen. Naturally, he couldn't show any disrespect to the Vermillion Bird Representative's friends. Suddenly, the Vermillion Bird's feather in his hand suddenly flashed. The Vermillion Bird's mayor looked up at Ling Chen and found that without anyone realizing, a hazy white shadow had appeared behind him. Although it was quite hazy, it was evident that it was a gigantic, roaring white lion that was covered with purple markings. The White Tiger. White Tiger's representative. The Vermillion Bird's mayor was dumbfounded. Although he was extremely shocked, the Vermillion Bird's mayor quickly recovered and didn't actually yell out. As he returned to the Vermillion Bird City with Xiaoqi, his emotions were incredibly complicated. No wonder he was friends with the Lady Representative. He was the White Tiger's representative, the person who had inherited the power and soul of the White Tiger, the most powerful of the 4 guardian beasts. News had spread that the White Tiger had gone berserk and then died, causing the White Tiger City to fall into chaos. The White Tiger City's mayor was also desperately searching for the White Tiger's representative, and he was right here. Thinking to the state of the Vermillion Bird City, the Vermillion Bird City's mayor understood just how the White Tiger City's mayor was feeling and immediately sent him a message regarding the White Tiger's representative. Within 30 minutes, tens of people in light armor charged out from the White Tiger City, rushing towards the fairy forest. Afterwards, Ling Chen devoted all of his time towards the new city. It was impossible for him to familiarize himself with such a large city in such a short amount of time. As he familiarized himself with the place, he made suggestions about some changes, which the dwarves unhesitatingly complied with. This made Ling Chen feel a bit embarrassed about suggesting any more changes. "Tianya, when I logged off earlier, I had a look in a mirror and found that it wasn't just an illusion in the game. The wounds on my face really all disappeared. There isn't even a scar left." Xianyuan Diaowu was sitting back to back with Ling Chen as she happily spoke while looking at the sky. "Haha, of course it wasn't an illusion. My Diaowu should naturally be that pretty," Ling Chen said as he laughed. But Xianyuan Diaowu's eyes were filled with confusion and haziness. "Although I didn't dare to look in the mirror, I would wash my face every day and feel those countless, coarse scars on my face. If the scars had long since disappeared, I should have discovered this long ago. Yesterday, when I washed my face, I could still feel them. It's quite simple. This is a classic psychological effect," Ling Chen said breezily. "Because you've always been sure that there were scars on your face. When you touched your face, your brain convinced you that there were scars there. Don't think about it too much. All you need to know is that you're my perfect Diao Wu. Xian Yuan Diao Wu replied as she smiled. Although she still felt quite confused, she wanted to believe Ling Chen's explanation and let go of those thoughts. Tianya, right now you're at the Bamboo Sea Wonderland in Suhang, right? Xian Yuan Diao Wu asked. That's right. Hurry and fly over here. Ling Chen smiled as he replied. How many girls are there with you? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So many. Are you angry? No way. Humph. Since there are so many girls staying with you, I'll go next month. Humph. Sunlight shines brightly at noon. Right after lunch, the screeching of brakes sounded out outside of Bamboo Sea Wonderland. Li Xiaoshui, who was supposed to come in the afternoon, had come early. Big Sister Xiaoshui. Li Xiaoshui elegantly walked out of her red sports car and immediately saw Tian next to the man-made lake, as well as Shidisika. She stared for a moment before smiling. Isn't this little Sha? Why are you here? I thought you were an NPC in the game. It wasn't just Li Xiaoshui. Everyone else who met Shidisika thought she was an NPC because her pure white skin, pure white hair, and diamond-like eyes were not things that Chinese girls had. As such, Li Xiaoshui was quite shocked to see Shidisika here, but even if she was 100 times more intelligent, she wouldn't have imagined that Ling Chen had brought her out from the game. Good afternoon, Big Sister. Shidisika cutely smiled. Is Big Sister Xiaoshui here to find Big Brother? Tian skipped over. That's right. I have an appointment with him. Hasn't he come out from the game yet? After speaking, Li Xiaoshui saw Ling Chen walk out from the villa. Upon seeing her, he asked in frustration, Didn't we agree to meet in the afternoon? Li Xiaoshui smiled as she walked over while batting her eyelashes and said in a small voice, Would you believe me if I said that I just couldn't wait to see you? All right, it's fine if you're early. I wanted to meet Gu Qing as soon as possible too, Ling Chen said. Little master, do we have guests? Do you want me to do anything? An extremely bewitching voice came from behind Ling Chen, causing Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui's bodies to weaken. After the voice traveled out, its owner walked out from behind Ling Chen. In that instant, Li Xiaoshui felt as if the sky and earth had suddenly dimmed, and that all of the light in the world was gathered on this ridiculously beautiful woman. Compared to her, everything else was incredibly dim and not worth looking at. Ling Chen nearly cursed out loud, swearing at her thousands of times inwardly. Didn't I tell you time and time again not to come out? When a beautiful woman, an incredibly intelligent and beautiful woman, saw a woman even more beautiful than her, how would she react? What's more, it was in front of her man. Furthermore, from Qiyu's gaze, she was evidently provoking Li Xiaoshui. Meeting Gu Qing with a peerless background, extraordinary looks and figure, intelligent mind, dignified temperament, and her status as the sole heir of the Li family, Li Xiaoshui was not inferior to any other woman in China. However, after facing Qiyu and exchanging a few glances for just a couple seconds, she couldn't help but admit that she had lost. She couldn't understand or see through this woman's gaze, and this woman's looks and figure were so perfect that she couldn't breathe. What's more, the aura that came from this woman gave her a strange feeling of suppression. As the big miss of the Li family, she had always reigned above other people, but when facing Qiyu, she felt that completely suppressed without even doing anything. This was the first time Li Xiaoshui had felt this way towards a woman since birth. However, in the end, she was Li Xiaoshui. No matter what sort of situation she was in, she would never seem flustered. She naturally held Ling Chen's hand as she smiled. Ling Chen, when did such a beautiful big sister start living in your home? I've never heard you mention her before. She also seemed to call you Little Master Dot. Ling Chen didn't hesitate and started to walk hand in hand with Li Xiaoshui towards the car, not giving Qi Yu an opportunity to make things worse, as he struggled to find words. She's a maidservant I found. Just ignore her. Take me to see Gu Qinghan. Big brother, are you going out with big sister Xiaoshui? Tian ran over as she stretched out her hand, which contained a strand of snow-white hair, towards Ling Chen. This is Sha's hair. Big brother can bring Sha a gaming device. Sha seems to have lost her gaming device. All right. Ling Chen hesitated and then nodded. Sha came from the game and didn't belong to Earth. However, after coming to the real world, she was like a normal human. Maybe she really could use a gaming device. Little master, can you take me with you? I heard that there are lots of beautiful clothes you can pick. I just have this simple piece of clothing, so I feel embarrassed every time I go out, Qi Yu said in a pitiful tone while wearing her black muslin dress. Although her clothes weren't see-through, they were incredibly revealing and completely different from what people normally wore on Earth. But that wasn't the main issue. Allowing Qi Yu to come here was already enough to make Ling Chen feel incredibly frightened and taking her out. Ling Chen shook his head and didn't dare to think any further as he replied, I'll ask Qiaoying and Qiao Shi to buy you some clothes. Xiaoshui's let's go. Yingshui, make sure you protect them well. The sports car roared as it shot off into the distance. Only then did Ling Chen let out a sigh of relief. If Li Xiaoshui and Qi Yu interacted for any longer, who knew what that demoness could have done? You know what I want to ask. Li Xiaoshui gripped the steering wheel as she spoke without looking at Ling Chen. She didn't look too happy. Ling Chen leaned back against the headrest as he said powerlessly, The situation is a bit complicated, and I don't know how to explain it clearly. Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? I can allow my man to have his secrets. Moreover, that woman is so beautiful that even if I wanted to get jealous, I wouldn't be able to. I can't even imagine how such a perfect woman could exist in the world. What's even more surprising is how well you've hit her. Logically speaking, such a beautiful woman should be known throughout the world. They had already come out from Bamboo Sea Wonderland when the car stopped at a red light, as Li Xiaoshui said somewhat sadly and wistfully, Plus, you never belonged to me alone. Ling Chen agreed with Li Xiaoshui's words. However, the truth was that Qi Yu didn't even belong to this world. Su Hang, Gu family's residence. Ling Chen was wearing an extremely wide peaked cap, and without lowering his head, it already covered most of his face. After all, he was a national fugitive, and everyone in the country knew what he looked like. As such, he had to do this. Beside him, Li Xiaoshui affectionately held his arm as they walked into the Gu family's residence, causing many of the Gu family's people to stare in shock. It was the first time they had seen the big Miss Li so intimate with a male around her age. Could it be? Since Li Xiaoshui had come personally, the Gu family didn't dare to treat her with less respect than was due, nor did they discourteously ask Ling Chen to take off his cap. After being shown to the guest hall, the Gu family sent people to notify Gu Qinghan. Big Miss, the Li family's Big Miss has arrived with a man. The man looks around Big Miss Li's age and is wearing a peaked cap, so we can't see his appearance. Because he was brought by Big Miss Li, we didn't dare to ask, but he looks quite intimate with Big Miss Li. Gu Qinghan stood up with a whoosh as she hurriedly asked, Where are they? No matter what happened, Gu Qinghan never showed any emotions. Upon seeing her so flustered, the people reporting were given a big fright as they replied, They're in the guest hall. Gu Qinghan didn't say anything as she turned and rushed out of the door. Because of how rushed she was, she tripped at the doorstep and almost fell over. The people who came to report stared, incredibly dumbfounded. This was Ling Chen's second time meeting Gu Qinghan, and seeing her still caused his eyes to light up. He knew that Gu Qinghan was middle-aged, but there weren't any traces of age on her face. Time, something that is generally merciless and cruel, hadn't destroyed her looks, but instead made her look more majestic and dignified. However, her footsteps when she entered the guest hall made him feel quite surprised and confused. Moreover, when she entered, her gaze didn't fall on Li Xiaoshui, but on him. The first time they had passed each other, her eyes had been still as water, as if she hadn't even seen him. And yet, her eyes were trembling as she looked at him, a trembling due to intense emotions. "Auntie Gu!" Li Xiaoshui stood up and courteously greeted her. "Hello, Gu family's leader. Nice to meet you." Ling Chen also stood up, as he spoke neither servilely nor overbearingly. "He's..." Facing Li Xiaoshui, Gu Qinghan did her best to suppress her emotions as she asked. Li Xiaoshui silently nodded. In that moment, Gu Qinghan's expression became indescribably complicated: excitement, delight, sorrow, confusion, pain. These emotions, which shouldn't be able to be experienced at the same time, all chaotically appeared on her face. She then waved her hand as she choked out the words. "Everyone leave, and close the doors. Without my orders, no one is to come within 50 meters. Gu Qinghan's words carried the highest seniority in the Gu family, and upon hearing this, everyone within the hall immediately complied and quickly left. The hall doors were closed as footsteps could be heard walking away. Gu Qinghan sat down in front of Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui, instantly regaining her composure. She looked up and down Ling Chen slowly before she spoke softly. "You must be Ling Chen. Take off your hat. You can treat this place as your home, so you don't need to make yourself uncomfortable." Gu Qinghan's gaze made Ling Chen feel slightly awkward, but her gaze warmed his heart, and he simply couldn't refuse. He took off his hat, showing his face as he looked at Gu Qinghan. "You can call me Ling Chen or Ling Tian. Thank you for your help in yesterday's battle for the new city, Gu family's leader." Ling Chen got straight to the point. Evidently, he wanted to turn the conversation to what he thought was the reason for today's meeting. However, Gu Qinghan did not seem to be in a hurry, and seemed to ignore what Ling Chen was trying to say. She continued to stare at Ling Chen. "Calling me Gu family's leader is simply too awkward. Just call me Auntie Gu like Xiaoshui." "Yes, Auntie Gu," Ling Chen replied unreservedly. Gu Qinghan slightly smiled and calmed her breathing as she spoke calmly and elegantly. "Ling Chen, before getting to the main topic today, let's talk about some things about you that I'm very curious about. Of course, I won't tell anyone else even a little bit about what we discuss here." Before Ling Chen could speak, Li Xiaoshui cut in. "Of course. Auntie Gu can ask whatever she wants." She then turned to Ling Chen as she blinked. "Did you know that Auntie Gu likes you quite a bit? You're the first young person she's taken favorably to quite an achievement. Then, what would Auntie Gu like to ask me?" Ling Chen could only ask that. Facing Gu Qinghan, he felt that she was quite different to what the rumors said. The Gu Qinghan he heard about always had an icy expression, and would speak with a mighty and severe tone. She was cold-hearted and emotionless, and no one had even heard about her smiling before. And yet, the Gu Qinghan in front of him, no matter if it was her gaze, tone, or expression, was like a gentle and warm breeze. She didn't seem high and mighty at all, and instead seemed like a gentle mother facing her own son. Were the rumors wrong? Or was it because she was close with Li Xiaoshui? But that didn't quite seem right. "Because I was quite curious about you, I've tried to investigate you. Can you tell me who your parents are?" Gu Qinghan leaned forward as she asked with a hint of anticipation. She realized that her question seemed quite sudden, so she added, "I'm just curious what sort of parents could raise such an excellent child." Ling Chen didn't feel like this question was very strange and calmly replied, "I don't have a father. Although he's still alive, he is dead in my heart, and has never existed. As for my mother, she's already dead. Dead? Gu Qinghan's expression flickered. She died when I was born, Ling Chen expressionlessly replied. So I never met her. She only left me a name. Tian. Yeah? Gu Qinghan softly said. Yes. Ling Chen nodded. For Li Xiaoshui to be able to discover his name while in the Long family, he wasn't surprised that Gu Qinghan knew of it too. But you said that you've never met your mother, so how are you sure that she's dead? Perhaps her death was a lie told to you by others. Perhaps she didn't die, but had to leave you for some reasons out of her control. Maybe, have you considered that your mother might still be alive? Gu Qinghan spoke emotionally. She immediately realized that her reaction had been too exaggerated as she explained. I just feel like if you've only heard something and haven't confirmed with your own eyes, you shouldn't fully believe it. This is especially so for things relating to family. Ling Chen stared in shock for a moment. He had never considered the possibility that his mother was still alive. However, since he was capable of conversing, he had been told that his mother was dead and that she had given him the name Tianya before she died. For him, who grew up being told this, how could he, as a child, have thought any differently? However, immediately after, Ling Chen calmly smiled. Anigu's right. Without seeing it with my own eyes, I won't be able to confirm this, so perhaps the possibility Anigu suggested might be the truth. However, no matter if it's the truth or not, it's not important to me. When I was younger, I admired other children for having mothers. As I slowly grew up, I became used to this, and the concept of a mother disappeared from my mind. She gave me my life, but I have no emotions connected to her. Even if she's still alive, the only connection I have to her is my blood. In other words, we would just be strangers with the same blood. Moreover, when I was 9 years old, I should have died. I only have my current life because 13 years ago, I determined that I would live on for Diawu. As such, the current me has no father or mother. While saying this, Ling Chen's face was expressionless, looking terrifyingly calm. On the other hand, tears were flowing out of Gu Qinghan's eyes. Li Xiaoshui was about to say something, but decided to stay silent and only lightly sighed. A shocking turn of events. Anigu you. Seeing Gu Qinghan like this, Ling Chen felt quite perplexed. He had just been casually speaking, and yet the famous and mighty Gu family's leader had started crying. What was going on? Li Xiaoshui sighed as she spoke. When Anigu was younger, she also had a son. It was just that the third day after her son was born, she was separated from him, and she didn't see him for the next 20 years. Many years ago, she had even heard that her child had died. Because of this, Anigu became cheerless and hasn't smiled in the past few years. What happened to you most likely reminded Anigu of her past. So it's like that. Ling Chen instantly understood. No matter how strong and domineering Gu Qinghan was, as a mother, she would still display the same emotions as other mothers. As such, he tried to comfort her by saying, Anigu, don't feel sad. Just like you said, it doesn't mean it's the truth just because you were told that. Perhaps your son is still alive and is looking for you. Yes, you're right. Gu Qinghan gently wiped away her tears as she smiled warmly, but at the same time mournfully. I believe that he's still alive, and that we'll be reunited one day. It's just that when he was born, I left him and didn't fulfill my duties as a mother. Moreover, he suffered immensely. Even if I find him, I don't know if I'll have the boldness to face him, much less have the right to be his mother. Absolutely not. Ling Chen shook his head as he reassured her. Although I don't have a mother, I'm certain that mothers are the greatest and warmest symbols in the world. Apart from a few twisted monsters, all mothers love their children, to the point that their love for their children surpasses their own lives. I'm sure that back then Onigu had her reasons for leaving her child. Otherwise, even if there was a faint hope, you would have still held on to it and not been willing to be separated from your child. I'm sure that if your child is still living and has grown up, he would think the same thing as me. If you feel like you owe your child, these tears are enough to make up for it. Gu Qinghan stared at Ling Chen dumbly, and the tears that had just stopped once again rushed out, unable to be stopped. Li Xiaoshui deeply looked at Ling Chen silently, but she seemed to relax a bit. Is that what you really think? Gu Qinghan's body and voice slightly trembled, and she was sobbing so much that she almost couldn't speak. If your mother was still alive, would you forgive her and want to reunite with her? Ling Chen paused in shock, and after thinking for a moment, he slowly shook his head. I've never thought about this, so I'm unable to reply. In the future, I won't think about it either. My experiences are far too different for normal people's, so I can't answer this question like a normal person. Haha, it seems like there's no need for me to think about it either. A strange feeling came over Ling Chen, making him change the topic. Onigu, your time is more precious than anyone else's, and I wouldn't dare to waste too much of it. Let's talk about the main topic for today. I want to know why you would risk everything to help the new city, as well as what you would like me to do for your Skyfall dynasty. The atmosphere was broken by Ling Chen's words, and Gu Qinghan could feel a slight sense of impatience from Ling Chen. She quickly calmed her emotions. Gu Qinghan was indeed Gu Qinghan, and she regained her composure in the blink of an eye. Although there were still traces of tears on her face, her gaze was just as cold and awake as it had been before. Apologies, I've allowed my emotions to get the better of me. Please don't take it to heart. As for the answer to your question, it's very simple, because I saw the potential of the new city. Potential? Ling Chen frowned. That's right. For example, all of the money and effort that Xiao Shui has poured into the new city is one of those factors. From a few days ago to the battle yesterday, if we joined the attackers, there was a slight chance that we could obtain the city creation token. However, with all of those wolves, as well as the ferocious tiger that is the Yin Huang Alliance, even if the Skyfall dynasty gave all it had, it would have been unlikely for us to obtain the city creation token. As such, I would rather that the Skyfall dynasty do the opposite to all those other alliances by not only not attacking the new city, but defending it. As Gu Qinghan spoke, her gaze and tone became calmer and calmer. Ling Chen's eyebrows remained furrowed as he replied, I still don't understand. You should have been very clear about the scale of the attacking forces. With your Skyfall dynasty's power, how could you stop those attacking forces? If nothing out of the ordinary happened, the Skyfall dynasty would have been completely obliterated by the attacking forces. Following this, the Skyfall dynasty could have been completely suppressed by the Yin Huang Alliance and might have never been able to recover. With all those considerations in mind, making the decision was essentially sending the Skyfall dynasty on a suicide mission with almost no benefits. I want to know where your confidence came from. Gu Qinghan sighed. Confidence? What confidence? When I made the decision, I was already prepared for the entire Skyfall dynasty to be annihilated. My decision was solely because... Of course it came from you. A calm smile appeared on Gu Qinghan's face. I heard all about the great things you did, and even about some of the things other people don't know about. Those things made me understand why the prideful Xiao Shui, who never put other people in her eyes, would blindly trust you so much. If Xiao Shui dared to bet on you, I would also naturally dare to bet on you. From how things turned out, it seemed that I bet correctly. Although the Skyfall dynasty's forces were wiped out, we saved the new city. As for the Yin Huang Alliance and the other alliances, their losses were even more severe, and even if they wanted to take revenge, they do not have the strength to do so. Because of that, not only did we gain you as a powerful ally, we'll also be able to move to the new city. This was the excuse Gu Qinghan made up on the spot. Although it seemed quite reasonable, if one thought about it, they would find that it was quite forced. Ling Chen quietly listened without saying anything. There's another reason, and this was the most important reason. Gu Qinghan's chest rose and fell. Evidently, she was thinking about something that she could not remain calm about. You completely hate the Long family, and from your actions, it seems like you wish that the Long family would disappear from this world. As for me, I also utterly hate the Long family. Ling Chen did not doubt this reason, for when Gu Qinghan spoke, the hatred and iciness within her eyes were bone-piercing. It was to the point that he felt his heart tremble. This sort of hatred wasn't a mere hatred of life and death. This hatred had been engraved on her heart over many decades. Ling Chen did not indicate whether he accepted these reasons, and instead he asked, all in all, we owe the Skyfall dynasty a great favor. Ani Gu, what would you like in return? We simply wish for the Skyfall dynasty to move to the new city, that's all. Gu Qinghan replied without hesitating. Moreover, if the new city has any uses for the Skyfall dynasty, you can use them as you please. Skyfall, against the sky, and judging sky will also follow orders from the new city. Ling Chen's eyebrows jumped. Was Gu Qinghan telling him that the Skyfall dynasty would work for them? This was giving the Skyfall dynasty, which the Gu family had invested all of their resources and effort into, over to the new city. To be able to rank in the top 3 guilds, the Gu family had invested extremely large amounts of time, money, and effort. It was the Gu families and the Esper families of the South's largest virtual asset. And now, with a single sentence, Gu Qinghan was essentially gifting it over to the new city. Even Ling Chen was unable to stay calm. He emotionally shot to his feet, his eyes trembling. However, he did not say anything. Finally, he only managed to say a single word. Reason? Because I feel that in the new city, the Skyfall dynasty will be able to develop even more, Gu Qinghan slowly said. She also knew that this reason was quite tenuous, and even laughable. However, since the new city was about to be opened, what they needed most was new blood. It needed players to support and protect it while it developed, which the Skyfall dynasty could do. Ling Chen stared at Gu Qinghan for a long time, and his expression changed more than 10 times as the hall became strangely silent. No one said anything, each person waiting for someone else to speak. Finally, Ling Chen looked away and looked up, silently looking at the high ceiling. When he lowered his head, his gaze was calm again. He nodded at Gu Qinghan and said, I'm sure you won't regret the decision you made today. Since it's like this, I won't take up any more of Anigu's time. Xiao Shui, let's go! Without waiting for Gu Qinghan's reply, Ling Chen grabbed Li Xiaoshui's hand and marched to the doors of the hall. His footsteps were strangely hurried, as if he was running away from something. Ling Chen's sudden actions caught Li Xiaoshui by surprise. She managed to say a farewell to Gu Qinghan before she was dragged out by Ling Chen. Gu Qinghan stood up and silently watched Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui leave, but she did not move or say anything, nor did she try to stop them. She only stared as she watched them leave. After leaving the Gu family's residence, Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui got into the car and shot off, Li Xiaoshui driving wildly. Driving on the not-so-crowded roads, they drove further and further away from the Gu family's residence. After driving for about 15 minutes, the two of them hadn't said anything yet. Li Xiaoshui silently drove while Ling Chen sat with his eyes closed, as if he had fallen asleep. Finally, Li Xiaoshui could hold back and broke the silence. You don't say anything! Ling Chen cut her off, his voice frantic. Don't tell me anything. I don't know anything. Li Xiaoshui did not say anything, but her gaze became complicated. Onigu, your wisdom and intelligence is unmatched, and you have the entire south side of China under your feet. But when facing him, you were unable to keep your cool. You were too emotional and anxious. Your strange expressions, the overly warm and longing looks in your eyes, the strange questions, the uncontrollable tears, the awkward reasoning, and giving him the entire Skyfall dynasty. He's not an idiot, and he will be able to connect all these together and reach a conclusion. The car slowed down and the sunroof opened, allowing a cool breeze to flow in. "Where are we going now?" Li Xiaoshui asked, feeling that Ling Chen's breathing had calmed down. "The Mystic Moon gaming device issuing point," Ling Chen replied with his eyes closed. He hadn't forgotten that Tian had asked him to pick up a gaming device for Sha Sha. He also wanted to know if Sha Sha, who was from the game, could use a gaming device to return to the virtual world in a different way. Gaming device issuing point. "Greetings, sir. Please give me your DNA sample." The attendant slightly leaned forwards while smiling professionally. The Mystic Moon world had been open for nearly 8 months, and there were now very few people who didn't have a gaming device. However, this issuing point was still there, but now it was mostly for giving players replacement gaming devices when they lost or broke theirs. Ling Chen gave Sha Sha's white hair to the attendant. Seeing the color of the hair, the attendant was slightly surprised, but still placed it into a special machine with practiced ease. "Thank you for waiting. The DNA analysis has been completed. What sort of device would you like? A bracelet or a pendant?" "Bracelet," Ling Chen replied. "What color would you like?" "White." Only white suited Shidisika, because she was essentially a pure white fairy. After the data was entered, the gaming device was quickly completed. The attendant brought over a white game bracelet and handed it to Ling Chen. "This is your gaming device. Please keep it safe, and we hope you enjoy your time in the game. If you have any further inquiries, you can call our customer service hotline at any time." Success? It succeeded just like that? Ling Chen hesitantly received the game bracelet and absent-mindedly looked over it. So could Sha Sha really use this gaming device? After all, she was someone who he had brought out from the game. By the time Li Xiaoshui brought Ling Chen back to Bamboo Sea Wonderland, it was already dusk. After driving out from Bamboo Sea Wonderland, she parked the car and called Gu Qing Han. "Onigu, although I can understand your emotions, you acted too rashly. He seems to have sensed something. However, as you saw, he doesn't want to turn his suspicions into reality. Right now, it's not yet time for you to be reunited. However, that's good. Perhaps if he's given enough time, he'll be able to gradually accept it and will seek out this matter himself. Also, Onigu, there's another matter that has been weighing on my heart that I would like an answer to. Back then, why did you leave Beijing? And as for him, he was that person's son, so why was he treated in such a way? Despite thinking about it for a long time, I'm still unable to think of a reason." Gu Qinghan fell silent for a while before she finally spoke. "Chao Shui, come to my place." The car started and quickly sped towards the Gu family's residence. Ling Chen put on the game bracelet for Shidisika and taught her how to use it. Following this, Shidisika leaned back on her chaise lounge, closed her eyes, and entered the virtual game. Sha Sha instantly fell silent, and after a long while, she opened her eyes with a look of confusion on her face. "Sha Sha, did it work? Did you return to the virtual world?" Ling Chen asked. "It's so strange." Shidisika got up and looked at Ling Chen in confusion. The place where Ling Chen and I had been before we left was a pretty forest, but I was in a dark place where a voice was telling me, that's right, to create a character. It asked me a lot of questions, and I suddenly came to a place called Novice Village. Ling Chen was speechless. Sha Sha, who he had brought out from the game, had used a gaming device to re-enter the game and was now a player. It was quite logical. Novice Village? Why would it be Novice Village? Tian asked in surprise. Didn't you meet Big Brother in the game? Big Brother left Novice Village a long time ago. How are you still in Novice Village? Oh right, Sha. What level are you now? And what's your profession? LV0, profession. I seem to have chosen Summoner because I heard Summoners can summon many things, which sounds very fun. Sha replied as she smiled. Eh? LV0? Tian blinked in surprise. How can you be LV0? And you created a new character. Why would it be like this? Ah, right. An idea came to Tian's mind. Could it be that you lost your gaming device, and after getting a new one, you had to start from the beginning again? It's something like that. Shadisika continued to smile sweetly. No one knew if she understood Tian's question. Ling Chen let out a small breath. He was worried about how to explain this, but Tian had explained it herself. No less than expected from my Tian, so smart. It's a pity that you have to start from LV0, and that all of your previous effort went to waste. Tian said sympathetically. As she spoke, she protectively put her hand over her game bracelet, seeming to fear that she would lose it or break it. It's okay. Shadisika comforted Tian. Novice Village is very pretty, and I'll have a lot of fun there. Ha ha. I was worried that you would be sad, but it turns out Sha is so optimistic. So amazing. Big Brother and I will wait for Sha to leave the Novice Village so we can go adventuring together. That's right. What does Sha want to eat tonight? Tian rubbed her hands together. It was nearly dinner time, and as she became better and better at cooking, she started to like it more and more. She enjoyed the feeling that came from looking after Ling Chen. I'll make dinner tonight. Shadisika raised her hands. Sha, you know how to cook? Ling Chen and Tian were both quite surprised. Of course. Shadisika jumped down from the chaise lounge chair and then ran to the kitchen. Although I don't know how good it'll be, I'll do my best. This is the first dinner I've made for Ling Chen and Tian, and I'm going to do my best, so please don't come in. Shadisika closed the door and locked it. Evidently, little Sha was determined to make dinner by herself. After a while, the sounds of cooking could be heard. Ling Chen and Tian turned to look at each other. Will she be okay? Sha is so little, and she doesn't look like she can cook. Tian said worriedly. You only look a bit older than Sha, but don't you know how to cook? Plus, your cooking is getting better and better. Ling Chen said as he looked at Tian. He could help but marvel at Tian's intelligence. Perhaps she was a genius at cooking. In just a short period of time, she, a young girl, had taken her cooking to the point that the look, aroma, and taste were all perfect. Even some people who had studied cooking for decades couldn't cook as well as her. That's because Big Sister taught me well, and because I'm really smart. So it's only natural that my cooking would become better and better. Tian proudly raised her very slightly developed chest. Half an hour later, the kitchen door was opened as a fragrant aroma filled the living room. Shadisika made 6 dishes in total. With her small body, in just half an hour, she made 6 dishes. What's more, each of the dishes had big servings. When the 6 dishes were carefully brought out by Shadisika and placed on the table, Ling Chen and Tian, who had just walked out of the bedroom, were completely dumbfounded. This was because the aroma from these dishes was simply too wonderful. When Ling Chen and Tian smelled it, their hunger level, which was quite low, suddenly skyrocketed as their bodies walked uncontrollably towards the table filled with delicious-smelling food. It smells so good. These dishes smell so good, ah. I want to eat. I want to eat. Tian rushed over to the table and stared at the 6 dishes, saliva flowing out from her mouth. Ling Chen came over not in a much better state than Tian, continuously gulping down his saliva as he stood in front of the food. The smell coming from the food was ridiculously good, and all of the cells in his body were screaming for it. Even if his willpower was 10 times as strong, he wouldn't have been able to control this natural reaction. Dinner's ready, hurry and give it a taste. Shadisika was wearing the apron that Tian normally used, and she smiled as she portioned out food for Ling Chen and Tian. Tian and Ling Chen, who could barely control themselves already, couldn't even reply before they quickly picked up their chopsticks and started to eat the food. Closest to Ling Chen was stone pot fish. Tian could make this dish as well, and she could do it quite well. It was one of the dishes Shura had spent the most time teaching her. He picked up a piece of fish meat and placed it in his mouth. His body instantly trembled, and the hand holding the chopsticks froze, forgetting to bring it out from his mouth. In that instant, he felt all of the pores on his body open up as all of his cells jumped in joy. The fish meat was extremely tender to the point that it was simply unbelievable. The instant the meat touched Ling Chen's tongue, it almost melted. The rich flavor of fish also spread throughout his mouth, spreading to every nook and cranny. He could tell that this was carp. However, how could such delicious carp exist in this world? It was difficult to imagine that ordinary carp could release such a taste. A taste so good that the person eating could feel intoxicated. It's too delicious. Heavens! It's simply too delicious. There were actually such delicious mushrooms in the world. Tian was eating a meat and mushroom stew. It was an ordinary dish made from ordinary ingredients, but Tian couldn't help but cry out. Her mouth was madly chewing as her crystal-like eyes almost radiated with light, her little face glowing red. She started to rapidly devour the food, her chopsticks stuffing her mouth with food as she continuously cried out and cheered. Ling Chen tried each of the 6 dishes. Every time he tried one, his taste buds became more excited. The stone pot fish was only the beginning, and each of the dishes was delicious to an incomprehensible level. He had tried countless delicacies in his lifetime, but none of them could compare to the dishes he was currently eating. In the morning, he had tried the dwarves' dessert. The dwarves were extremely talented in cooking. As long as they had the ingredients, whatever they made would always be delicious delicacies. However, in front of the dishes in front of him, all of the dwarves' food seemed extremely lackluster. Eating these dishes, Ling Chen felt that this was not reality. This sort of food was only fit for gods and shouldn't appear in the world. Shadisika filled a bowl with rice and placed it in front of Ling Chen. It was indeed a bowl of rice, an incredibly ordinary staple food, but the rice he saw was completely different to the rice he normally ate. These grains of rice were incredibly smooth, and they looked more like pearls in the bowl. He hesitantly ate a spoonful, and his taste buds and heart were greatly shaken. Heavens! Even the rice was so delicious that one could accidentally swallow their tongue. Was this really the rice from the kitchen? Emergency mission. Sha, did you make all of this? Ling Chen asked with shock. All Ling Chen could do was raise his head and stare at Shadisika dumbly. Only Sha had been in the kitchen, apart from her, who could have made this. However, Ling Chen was unable to believe that this divine meal was made by such a little girl. Of course I made it. Is it good? Shadisika tilted her head as she asked in expectation. It's delicious. Too delicious. Too delicious, nom nom. Tian mumbled as she continued to ravenously devour the food. It's incredibly good. Ling Chen spoke with great difficulty because he simply couldn't think of how to describe it. Really? Shadisika happily smiled. Great, then Ling Chen and Tian need to eat a lot. Ling Chen simply couldn't resist. Even if he could control himself, the gluttony within him would have caused an uprising. He didn't waste any words and started to devour the food with Tian. After taking a few big bites, he heard the sound of a door opening, and then Qi's soft and silky voice. "It smells so good to the point that I can't control myself," Shadisika hurriedly called out. "Big sister Qiyu, hurry and come eat. It's the dinner I made." The delicious aroma that assailed her nose greatly impacted Qiyu, making it so that she couldn't resist leaving her room. When she tasted her first dish, her reaction was exactly like Ling Chen's. Her body froze, and she forgot to take the chopsticks out from her mouth. "This was made by Sha." Shock was written all over Chiyu's face as she stared at Shadisika. "Uh-huh. Is it good?" Qiyu stared at Shadisika for a while before slowly replying, "It's the most exquisite food I've ever tasted." Knock knock. Knocking sounds came from the living room door as Chao Ying and Chao Yi's voices sounded out. "Master Tian, can we come in?" Chao Ying and Chao Shi were dressed in seductive clothing as usual. After arriving in the living room, they immediately saw the food on the table. Even with their extremely strong willpower, they gulped down their saliva 7 or 8 times while they stood in the room. "Big Sister Xing and Shi, this is the food I made. Do you want to have some as well?" Shadisika asked as she waved at them. "This was made by Sha." Chao Ying and Chao Shi also stared in shock before asking in a hopeful tone, "Can we really eat together with you?" Before they received a reply, they had already been drawn over to the table by the delicious-smelling food. They tightly gripped their chopsticks as they brought the food to their mouths, instantly resulting in them crying out from bliss and shock. With 5 of them, 6 dishes should have been quite a lot. Putting aside the massive eater Tian was, Ling Chen's appetite was medium, while Qiyu was still not quite used to this world's food and only ate 3 strawberries for lunch. As for Chao Ying and Chao Shi, in order to maintain their figure, they did not eat too much either. And yet, the 6 dishes and the pot of rice were finished within 3 minutes, and everyone was not yet satisfied, looking at Shadisika in expectation. "Oh, did I make too little and everyone's not full yet?" Shadisika, who had cooked all of this but had not eaten any of it, weakly said as she looked at their ravenous stares. Everyone nodded. Then, I'll go make some more." Everyone nodded once again twice as vigorously as before. Shadisika, who had just come out from the kitchen not too long, once again went back inside. She felt quite happy that everyone enjoyed eating her food so much. This time, she did not lock the door. Tian and Ling Chen also went in and watched as she cooked the food. Because of how short she was, a lot of the time she had to stand on a stool. The 6 stoves were operated simultaneously, as another 6 dishes were cooked together, and yet Shadisika did not seem flustered at all. Her movements were like drifting clouds and flowing water. They seemed as practiced as that of a cooking maestro with half a century of experience. Ling Chen and Tian were completely flabbergasted as they watched. Holy crap! Even if she started to cook from when she was born, it should be impossible to reach such a level of proficiency. All of the ingredients that she used were from the kitchen, the same as that which Tian normally used. She didn't use any tricks at all. Apart from being quite skillful, her methods didn't look much different from what Tian normally did, but when the dishes were completed, the aroma was enough to make their saliva overflow. This time Shadisika cooked 8 dishes and another pot of rice. All of this was once again completely devoured by the 5 people, leaving not even a bit of sauce. Because they had been so frantic and absorbed in their eating, they forgot to leave Shadisika any. Poor little Sha could only munch on a big apple in front of the television. Sha, where did you learn to cook?" Ling Chen couldn't help but ask as he sat next to Sha. He knew where she had come from, and he was sure that she definitely wasn't a chef or some world-class chef's daughter. She was a mysterious figure from the game, someone who came from ancient times and had lost most of her memories. I don't know either. Just as Ling Chen had expected, Shadisika shook her head and said hazily, When I thought about dinner, I suddenly felt that I could make it, so I tried it out and seemed to succeed. Ling Chen marveled inwardly. Seemed to succeed? I almost swallowed my tongue. Sha, you're simply a genius. You're so amazing. You're clearly very young, and yet your cooking skills are better than even big sisters. Tian, who had eaten till she was satisfied, looked at Sha with an expression of adoration. Her eyes flashed as she grabbed Sha's hands and earnestly said, I've decided that I'm going to learn to cook from Sha in the future, so that I can cook just as well as Sha. Sha, you'll definitely continue to stay here, right? If you leave, we won't be able to eat all that yummy food again. Of course I'll stay here. Shadisika nodded without any hesitation. As for teaching Tian cooking, although I don't know how to teach, I'll do my best. Awesome. It's a promise then. Then, can we start now? Okay. The two girls ran and jumped into the kitchen. Seeing that there was no one around, Ling Chen licked his lips. Sha's dinner was so delicious that he felt as if he was going to die. Compared to the dinner he just had, all of the delicacies he ate in the past were simply tasteless. The construction of the new city had reached its final stages, and would be completed by noon the next day. What he needed to do after the official completion of the construction was to ask the Azure Dragon's mayor to set up a permanent teleportation channel to the new city. That was all he was required to do. There was a saying that those who are well-fed and well-clothed will have their lust aroused. After eating until he was incredibly full, Ling Chen stood up and swaggered out as he muttered, She prepared to do an emergency mission. The location of the emergency mission was in the nearby bamboo forest, and was very, very intense. It was much more intense than the previous times, the reason for which was Qiyu's arrival. Qiyu, that demoness, had acted flirtatiously in front of him time and time again. Although Ling Chen had successfully resisted her each time, the flames of desire built up within him. He did his best to resist Qiyu, but when he couldn't hold back anymore, he released his pent-up lust on Qiao and Qiao. Within the empty bamboo forest, and under the cover of night, the three of them were wildly entangled. Qiao hugged Ling Chen from behind, rubbing her large breasts against his back. Ling Chen groped Qiao's supple breasts, vigorously pounding into her, as Qiyu's figure repeatedly appeared in his mind. Qiao's snow-white legs were tightly wrapped around his waist as she uncontrollably moaned. Her snake-like waist twisted as her bottom shook rapidly. The loud colliding sounds, as well as tantalizing moans, filled the surrounding bamboo forest with a sense of lust. After Qiao was Qiao, then Qiao again. The three of them battled for many rounds, moving around chaotically. By now, they had moved 10 or so meters from where they had begun. At first, Qiao and Qiao were like a swarm of mad bees, but at the end, they could only beg for mercy. After Ling Chen released all of his lust on them, the two women pretended to faint multiple times. The emergency mission was finally over. The sound stopped as Ling Chen looked around. He put on his clothes as he leaned against a bamboo tree, appreciating the beautiful scene of the two women under the moonlight. Qiao and Qiao were both naked as they hugged each other, a red glow over their bodies, and a blissful and hazy expression in their eyes. They looked incredibly seductive, and their eyes, which were tantalizing to begin with, seemed even more erotic as they were filled with lust. There was not a bit of energy left in their bodies, and they had more or less lost consciousness. Their eyes were unfocused as they lay there. After Sha and Qiyu had moved from the virtual world into the real world, Ling Chen felt like his life in the real world had changed. However, regardless, his life was still incredibly blissful. Xiaoqi was safe and well, and Diaowu had returned. Ming Xian's new city was nearly completed, and the only thing missing was Shura. If Shura could return, everything would be perfect, and there would be nothing more he desired. He was sure that day would come, and that it would be soon in the future. Ling Chen turned and gently kissed Chao Ing and Chao Shi on their cheeks as he lustfully smiled. "Well done, you two beauties. This mission was executed perfectly. In the future, you can moan a bit louder and not hold it in. They won't be able to hear you." After rubbing their breasts simultaneously, Ling Chen got up and happily walked away. The Ling Tian city is open just as Ling Chen had estimated. 3 days after the attack on the new city, the construction of the city was finally completed. The new city was called Ling Tian City, and because Ling Chen adamantly refused the title of Lord of the City, the title of Lady of the City fell on Yunmeng Xian. This was because Ling Chen knew that he wouldn't be able to stay in the Ling Tian City for extended periods of time, and because he didn't have the time nor the skills to manage the city. As such, handing it to Yunmeng Xian was the best decision. After all, this city was something Ling Chen had originally gifted to Yunmeng Xian. However, under the insistence of the dwarves, fairies, and the players, he was given the title of Vice Lord. That day, the entirety of Ling Tian City became a sea of cheering. Although it had been completed, that did not mean it would be immediately opened. After a day of joyous celebrations, the anxious preparations to open the city began. With the dwarves' immense talent, as well as abundant resources, and the powerful fairies working with them, the complicated preparations were completed with great efficiency. Ling Chen was able to successfully negotiate with the Azure Dragon's mayor to connect the Azure Dragon City and Ling Tian City with a permanent teleportation channel. One side was connected to the Ling Tian City's central plaza, and the other was near the Azure Dragon City's revival point. The Azure Dragon's mayor could find no reason to refuse Ling Chen's request. Ling Chen had helped him greatly, and he was the war god's successor. He simply couldn't refuse. During this period of time, the Disillusion Alliance, Battle Alliance, Snow Moon Lulan, and Skyfall Dynasty left their headquarters and prepared to move to the new city. This process wasn't very complicated, and was completed within a few days. As they did this, they were not harassed or attacked by the Yin Huan Alliance or any other guilds. Evidently, they had suffered grievous losses during that battle, and wouldn't be able to do anything for quite a while. Moving from a main city to the player city Ling Tian City, as well as following all of the orders from the Ling Tian City. Just what is Big Sister thinking? I'm simply unable to comprehend her actions. AI. Skyfall watched the Skyfall Dynasty's players hurrying around, as he sadly thought inwardly. No matter how well the Ling Tian City was developing, in the end, it was simply a player city. It would never be able to compete with a main city. The Skyfall Dynasty moving to the new city would be a great help to the new city, but Skyfall could not see how the Skyfall Dynasty would benefit. Simply moving there was something that he could more or less accept. However, why did they need to unconditionally follow all orders from Ling Tian City? If it wasn't Gu Qinghan who had given this order, he would have started cursing on the spot and beaten up the person who said that to the point that their head exploded. The three brothers had spent an incredible amount of mental and physical effort and money, and had suffered much to develop the Skyfall Dynasty. They had spent countless days and nights working hard to look after the Skyfall Dynasty. They had made countless alliances, gone to countless wars, and had made countless plans and plots, and now, their alliance had to completely follow the orders of someone else. This was essentially gifting the Skyfall Dynasty to the new city. Since it's a command from Big Sister, we'll have to follow it, Against the Sky said sorrowfully. These years, many of Big Sister's orders have seemed crazy and incomprehensible. However, from all the results we've seen, when has Big Sister ever made a bad decision? As such, we don't need to think too much about it. The truth will come to light someday. Come to speak of it, I'm also looking forward to the Ling Tian city's development. Because of that battle, Ling Tian city's fame from the very beginning will be much greater than any other cities in virtual gaming history. Judging Sky seemed at ease and looked calm and unhurried, his eyes filled with expectation. That's true. Skyfall let out a long sigh as his gaze became serious. Li Xiaoshui just sent a message saying that Ling Tian City will be opened in 10 days at the latest. The day before the opening will be a grand ceremony, so prepare for that. For Li Xiaoshui, who was the major stakeholder in the Ling Tian City, chief of finances, and vice lady of the city, it was only natural for her Snow Moon Lulon to move to the new city. It was no problem either for the Disillusion Alliance, because the lady of the city was the little sister of their alliance master. As for the Battle Alliance, they were willing to move as well. If Shaoqi requested it, it was possible that Xiao Qiufeng would wrap up the entire Battle Alliance and hand it over to Ling Tian City. Just like that, before the new city had even opened, it had more than 30,000 NPCs and over 4 million players. Moreover, Ling Tian City no longer had to worry about being attacked. This was because the dwarves and fairies were now officially residents of Ling Tian City. If the city was attacked, they could retaliate against the attackers. The dwarves' battle power was quite weak, but the fairies, what a joke! Let alone the entire clan. A single mysterious god Great Greenwood was able to kill all attackers, so that they wouldn't even be able to touch the city. 2 days later, a large crowd of people from White Tiger City arrived at Ling Tian City, requesting to see the White Tiger's representative. When Ling Chen appeared with confusion written all over his face, the White Tiger's mayor almost knelt down to him. Kneeling to the White Tiger's representative was not something shameful, but rather something completely normal. After the White Tiger had perished, White Tiger City had descended into chaos. There were rumors flying around that White Tiger City's city lifeline was about to be destroyed, and that the end of White Tiger City was nigh, causing the residents to become extremely worried and fearful. Before the White Tiger had perished, it had left him a message, telling him the truth about its death. It had emphasized that Ling Tian had saved it, and had received its inheritance, becoming the White Tiger's representative. Only the White Tiger's representative could calm this situation. As such, Ling Chen went with the White Tiger's mayor and entered White Tiger City, a place that normally only LV70 and above players could enter. 7 days later. Ding! China region announcement. Because more than 40% of players in the China region have completed their second profession upgrade, the Forgotten Continent's royal city, the Forgotten City, has been unlocked. All players can now freely enter and exit the Forgotten City. As the royal city of the Forgotten Continent, the Forgotten City holds the most power and authority in the Forgotten Continent, and it will be a new starting point for players. A loud system announcement rang out, telling everyone that the royal city had been unlocked. The early stages of the game had now progressed into mid-game, indicating that the main city for players would no longer be the Azure Dragon City, but the Forgotten City. Countless players, who had been unable to enter the Forgotten City because of their level, loudly cheered. Some business people, who had long since been waiting, rushed into the Forgotten City to obtain the best resources and positions to gain an advantage over the others. Just as players were about to rush into the Forgotten City, another loud system announcement rang out. Ding! China region announcement. China region's only player city, Ling Tian City, has officially been opened today. All players can reach Ling Tian City through the teleportation channel at the central plaza of Azure Dragon City. Ling Tian City welcomes all players and friends to come. Although Ling Tian City is relatively new, its management and rules system is complete, so please follow the rules when entering Ling Tian City or receive punishment. Punishments include being temporarily banned or permanently banned from the city. This system announcement once again sent the players into a frenzy. This city, which had miraculously survived under the attack from the onslaught of more than 10 million players, the first city that wasn't owned by the Yin-Huang Alliance, was open today, and the name of this city clearly pointed out its owner, Ling Tian. What surprised people was that they had chosen to release Ling Tian City right when the royal city was unlocked. The opening of the royal city was something that countless players had looked forward to, and was symbolic of their entire region progressing. This enlarged the scope of activities for the China region, allowing players to obtain better equipment and making China stronger as a whole. As such, when the royal city was opened, it was always given great attention and masses of people would rush to it. Ling Tian City instantly became the center of attention. However, no matter how big of a miracle Ling Tian City had created, it was just a player city. It could be said that it was simply a private city and had nothing to do with outsiders. Therefore, it could not be compared to the system's royal city. At most, it could raise the curiosity of some players and give a fresh feeling, but that was all. And yet, they had arrogantly decided to open the city on the same day that the royal city was unlocked. Even if you beat back 10 million troops, or even 100 million troops, what makes you think you could stand up against the royal city? Now that the royal city is opened, who would bother going to your player's city? What's more, apart from telling players the method to reach the new city, it did not say anything to attract players or even introduce the new city. In previous games, when the Yin-Huang Alliance completed a city, they would use extremely enticing words and descriptions to promote their city. Even something that was extremely insignificant would be praised to no end. Even if Ling Tian City didn't promote itself, that would have been fine. And yet, it emphasized its strict rules, which included banning. Fudge! The new city was dependent on players, and should have been begging players to come, not the other way around. Without a doubt, most players naturally disregarded the second system announcement and bought teleport scrolls to the royal city from those who had already been and then swarmed towards the royal city. As for the new city, did it have the masses of new quests that the royal city had? Could they do their second profession upgrade at Ling Tian City? Did Ling Tian City have high-level equipment, crystals, and potions? Going to Ling Tian City was akin to going on a sightseeing trip. They could do that anytime. As such, going to the royal city was much more important. Although, comparatively, it was a much smaller figure, there were still some people who went to the Azure Dragon City's Central Plaza, preparing to have a look at the new city. These people had long since reached LV50, and they had all been to the royal city before. When they reached the teleportation channel, unexpectedly nothing happened. After waiting for a while, they started to curse loudly. This was because while standing at the teleportation channel, they received a notification. If they wanted to go through the teleportation channel, they would have to first pay 50 gold coins. Xiao Shui, are you sure this is the right thing to do? Over the course of history, all player cities have done all they could to make things as easy as possible for players to come. We have the advantage of this teleportation channel, but we're imposing such a high teleportation fee. Are you sure this will be all right? Yunming Xian asked worriedly. At the beginning, there'll be some slight problems. Li Xiaoshui smiled as she played with her nails, a light of brilliance in her eyes. But within half an hour, even if we raise the teleportation fee by 10 times, there'll be people crying and screaming to enter. The crowded Ling Tian City won. They're asking us to pay 50 gold coins to go through the teleportation channel? Fudge! Is this a joke? Is Ling Tian City that desperate for money? God damn it. It's their first time building a city, and they're all mad. They should be begging for players to go right now, and yet they're asking for money. Fudge! This elder was going to visit the new city to give you some face, but 50 gold coins? Shaw, even if you beg me, I won't go anymore. The teleport scrolls for each of the main cities, and the royal city only costs 5 silver coins, and yet they're asking for 50 gold coins? It's 100 times more expensive. Which idiot thought of this idea? This is simply chasing away all of the players who are going to give them some face and visit. Fudge, I'm not going anymore. You want us to pay to support you? Go screw yourself. With this teleportation fee, if the new city can really develop, I'll run around the forgotten city naked 3 times. The Azure Dragon City's central plaza was filled with cursing. After seeing the condition to go through the teleportation channel, the entire China region exploded with discussions as threads flooded the forums. The reason was very simple. We're going to the new city to support you and give you face. And yet you're charging a fee. A ridiculously expensive fee. How can you be so shameless? Only idiots would go to Ling Chen City. All of the major media outlets immediately reported this matter. Countless experts, professors, and teachers all concluded that Ling Chen City was desperate to recover their investments, resulting in them thinking of this ridiculously stupid method. They all criticized Ling Chen City and called on Ling Chen City to immediately cancel the teleportation fee, saying that it was bringing ruin upon itself. In response, Ling Chen City did not change anything at all, preparing for the first day of the new city's opening. There were more than 1 billion players in China, and although they were all infuriated by the high price of the teleportation fee, there were some who could not hold back their curiosity. Even if it was just to satisfy their curiosity, they decided to pay the teleportation fee. Finally, some fairly rich players unhappily paid the 50 gold coins. A white light flashed as the first wave of players arrived at Ling Chen City's central plaza. After looking around, they all stood there, transfixed, unable to believe their eyes. This was a player city? This was really a player city. How could this be a player city? The size of the central plaza couldn't compare with that of the forgotten cities, but it was no smaller than the Azure Dragon cities. The central plaza's revival stone hovered in the air, giving off a mysterious light. That's right. It was a revival stone. A player city had a revival stone, something only main cities normally had. This meant that if players set their revival point here, they could revive at Ling Chen City's central plaza. To the dwarves, as long as they had the materials, making a revival stone was as simple as eating. The ground at the central plaza looked as if it was created from precious jade, and the light reflected off it was brilliant. However, it was not slippery at all. Next to the revival stone were giant magic screens. The nearest screen detailed the layout of Ling Chen City, the business district, the player trade district, the administrative district, the entertainment district, the public leisure district, the battle district, the NPC district, the residential district, the alliance district. There was even a class change hall. The layout was extremely clear, and had almost everything. No matters where the players looked, there were looks of shock on their faces. There were countless structures around them, and the style of these structures were quite similar. However, they had never seen such buildings before. From these buildings and structures, the players truly understood what grandeur was. The players were not allowed into the administrative district in the north, but the mighty and awe-inspiring buildings gave off an imposing air, striking a sense of respect into the players. As for the structures in the east, they were beautiful and elegant, and they were delightful to look at. In the south, the buildings in the business district gave off an air of temptation. From the map displayed on the screen, there was essentially every type of shop: equipment shop, item shop, potion shop, tailor shop, and smithy. Apart from a pawn shop, it had everything that a main city had. A look of confusion appeared on the faces of the players who had arrived, Player cities normally couldn't have player trade districts, much less business districts, which belong to main cities. Could it be that, just like main cities, they could sell equipment, items, and potions? Surely that was impossible. All right, if they bought them in large quantities from main cities and then sold them here, it was possible. But what was the point of that? The crowd of players, who had come here out of curiosity, went to the nearest district, the business district, and walked into the equipment shop. "Welcome, distinguished guests." A middle-aged dwarf smiled politely as he stood up from his chair. "My name is Kaidi, and I am the manager of this equipment shop. You can buy LV 40 to LV 60 gold grade equipment here. No matter if it's weapons or protective equipment, they're only 600 gold. Earrings, necklaces, and rings are a bit more expensive at 1,400 gold. What would you like?" Before Kaidi could even finish speaking, the players who had entered to just take a look were dumbfounded. After staring in shock, they started to stutter. "WWWW, what did you say? Gold grade equipment? 600 gold? What sort of joke is this? Do you think we're idiots?" Kaidi rolled his eyes and didn't bother to say anything as he directly showed them the trade window. Sword of Glory, type, double-handed sword, grade, gold, equipment requirements, warrior professions above LV 50. Price, 600 gold. Lacasero's protection, type, upper light armor, grade, gold, equipment requirements, archer professions above LV 50. Price, 600 gold. Golden Storm, type, boots, grade, gold, equipment requirements, any profession above LV 50. Price, 600 gold. Earrings of the Sage, type, earrings, grade, gold, equipment requirements, magic professions. Price, 1,400 gold. The list of equipment was densely packed to the point that their eyes blurred. From LV 40 to LV 60, except for masks and lunar chains, there was equipment for every level and profession. What's more, all of the equipment was gold grade. Let alone white, there were no iron, copper, or silver grade equipment. They were all gold grade. All of them. Apart from the jewelry equipment, all of the gold grade equipment were only 600 gold. 600 gold. No one could forget that during the first auction, a mere LV 15 gold grade earrings was sold for 8 million gold, while a gold grade lunar chain was sold for 50 million gold. Gold grade equipment was no longer as rare as it had been during the early stages of the game, but it was still a rare luxury. If a player had a single gold grade equipment, even if it was just gold grade gloves, they would still be incredibly proud. Wherever they went, they would always be followed with stares of jealousy and admiration. The preciousness of gold grade equipment was no less than that of a sports car in the real world. And now, right in front of them, were LV 40 to LV 60 gold grade equipment. No matter if it was weapons or defensive items, they were all 600 gold. 600 gold. It was like seeing the sports car of your dreams right in front of you and being told that it cost only $600. After a deathly silence, all of the players who had entered the equipment shop madly rushed up. "I want that sword of glory and those golden gauntlets. Helmet of pride. Cape of purple runes. Ring. Earrings. All of them. I want all of them. I want the entire LV 52 set for berserkers, including all of the jeweler equipment. The whole set. Don't push. I came first. I was here first. Whoever pushes me, I'll kill their entire family. OL7. Ling Tian City's equipment shop is selling gold grade equipment. From LV 40 to LV 60, they have everything. And it's unlimited. All of them are 600 gold. Screw you. You're the crazy one. Your whole family's crazy. Alliance Master. Ling Tian City's equipment shop is selling gold grade equipment. All levels, all professions, and all types. All of them are just 600 gold. I'm absolutely sure. Hurry and tell the rest of our alliance to come. Alliance Master, please believe me. If I'm lying, you can kill my entire family. There were very few players in the first wave that came to the Ling Tian city, only 200 or 300 people. However, when the news was spread from these 200 to 300 people that Ling Tian city was selling gold-grade equipment for 600 gold, it sent waves across all of China. This news was simply too shocking and unbelievable. Initially, the players who heard this only had a single response. You're mad! When this news was confirmed by more and more players, all of the players who heard this news went crazy. They completely disregarded the royal city and immediately returned to Azure Dragon City, rushing towards the teleportation channel that was completely inundated with people. In the face of 600 gold-grade equipment, the teleportation fee of 50 gold was nothing. Next to the equipment shop was the potion shop. When the players walked in, their eyes lit up. This was because the manager of this shop was a young fairy woman. Any woman from the fairy clan was an absolute beauty, and the male players could only stare as they salivated. When they looked at the list of potions, their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. Fountain Water of Dawn, pure fountain water that contains some dew of dawn. After consumption, regain 500 HP every second for 10 seconds. Price of 1 drop, 1 gold. Fountain Water of Dusk, pure fountain water that contains some dew of dusk. After consumption, regain 500 MP every second for 10 seconds. Price of 1 drop, 1 gold. Water of Dawn, natural water that contains some dew of dawn. After consumption, regain 3000 HP instantly. Cooldown time, 5 seconds. Price of 1 drop, 1 gold. Water of Dusk, natural water that contains some dew of dusk. After consumption, regain 1000 MP instantly. Cooldown time, 5 seconds. Price of 1 drop, 1 gold. Note: fountain water and water can be used together. Water of Nature, fountain water that has been purified by the fairy's nature energy. After consumption, increases maximum HP and MP by 2% for 1 hour. Price, 5 gold. Water of Light, fountain water that has been given warm light energy by the fairies. After consumption, instantly removes all debuffs. No cooldown time. Price, 5 gold. Super Water of Nature, fountain water that has been imbued with even more nature energy. After consumption, increases maximum HP and MP by 4% for 1 hour. Price, 20 gold. The crowded Ling Tian city. 2. These potions were extremely powerful and extremely cheap. Upon seeing them, the players felt like they were being blinded. The importance of powerful recovery potions was something every player knew about. They gave players the right to challenge higher-leveled monsters and to easily kill powerful bosses. They could greatly increase a player's survivability and allowed players to overcome differences in strength in PvP battles. The potions in front of them were so powerful that they had never even heard of a potion with such effects before. They should have been potions that only bosses dropped in extremely small quantities. They should have been worth an astronomical fortune. However, these heaven-defying potions in front of them had an unbelievable price. Moreover, they could buy as many as they wanted. Give me 1,000 drops of each. With these potions, it'll be difficult to die even if we wanted to. I'll buy 2,000 drops of each. Fudge! I don't have enough gold. I'll immediately go and exchange some. Please don't sell them all before I return. Hurry and come to Ling Tian City's potion shop. The potions they're selling are incredibly heaven-defying, and the prices they're selling them for are essentially giving them to you for free. Remember to bring enough gold. If they sell out, you'll have to cry yourselves to death. Hall Master, Hurry and notify the Alliance and tell all our brothers and sisters to come to Ling Tian City's potion shop. The equipment shop and potion shop were momentarily flooded with people when a countless number of players charged into the shops like mad bulls. There were various shops in the Ling Tian City's business district, and the equipment shop and potion shop were merely the beginning. When the items being sold in each shop were broadcasted to the rest of the world, the Chinese players all went utterly mad, while players from other countries became completely flabbergasted. Incredibly important information. Ling Tian City's crystal shop's lowest quality crystals are advanced, and they even have various super crystals. Advanced crystals are only 1,200 gold. God damn it. They're even cheaper than the Forgotten City's intermediate crystals. And the super crystals are only 2,000 gold. This information is simply unbelievable. Ling Tian City's smithy can add at least one bonus stat to any equipment. And you don't need to bring materials yourselves. Adding a low-grade stat only costs 200 gold, while a high-grade stat costs 800 gold. Holy crap, and there's a 100% success rate for equipment of celestial grade or below. You really don't have to bring your own materials. My god! Ling Tian City's tailor shop is simply heaven-defying. The clothes they sell actually give bonus stats. It's completely true. No matter if it's upper garments, lower garments, cloaks, or shoes, even the masks have at least one stat. These are clothes that can be worn outside of normal equipment, and they don't count as equipment. They also all look incredibly good. The key thing is the prices. They're only 500 gold. They're cheaper than any normal equipment in the Forgotten City by more than half. The criticisms and cursing towards Ling Tian City for charging such a high teleportation fee completely disappeared. More and more players desperately rushed towards the teleportation channel to Ling Tian City. 600 gold for equipment, super potions for 1 gold. Under that sort of temptation, the 50 gold for the teleportation fee was nothing. Just like Li Xiaoshui had said, even if she raised the teleportation fee to 500 gold, players would still fight to use it. The number of players entering the city did not decrease at all. The vast business street was completely filled with people, and only ants would be able to crawl through. Gold-grade equipment, which most people could only dream about, could be bought with a normal white-collar monthly salary and multiple of them at that. The super potions that only mega tycoons could afford could be bought in almost unlimited quantities here. This was simply blessings falling from heaven. All of the players madly fought to buy items and equipment because they couldn't help but worry that these things would be sold out. If that happened, they would only be able to cry. Those who had just gone to the Forgotten City and bought LV50 white-grade equipment and potions felt like crying and almost died from regret. LV50 white-grade equipment from the Forgotten City cost about 800 gold on average, while Ling Tian City's LV50 gold-grade equipment only cost 500 gold. White potions from the Forgotten City that restored 2,300 HP instantly cost 2 gold, while Ling Tian City's potions could recover 3,000 HP instantly and only cost 1 gold. What's more, it was stackable with a super potion that restored 500 HP every second. The intermediate crystals from the Forgotten City cost 1,500 gold, while the advanced crystals in Ling Tian City cost only 1,200 gold. The players who had just bought a whole haul of things from the Forgotten City could only weep to themselves with no one to complain to. At the beginning, countless players swarmed into the business street. However, as more and more players arrived, they found that Ling Tian City was not just amazing for its business district. In the gigantic gourmet plaza, those who ate the delicacies made by the dwarves couldn't help but tear up. Delicious! Absolutely delicious! This food is world-class! What did they use to make this? The taste is so fresh and beautiful. I feel as if my soul's going to fly away. What? I actually ate something so delicious. I feel so emotional. What if I can't eat such delicious food in the future? Another serving, another one, another one. Seeing the class change hall, players were initially incredibly confused. Why would they build such a thing in a player's city? Could they upgrade professions like in the system's main cities? When the information regarding the class change hall was broadcasted, all of China's players were once again shocked. Important news! Heaven-shocking, earth-shaking, extraordinary news! Go and look at Ling Tian City's class change hall's notice board. It says that if you pay the profession trainer 100 gold, you can select a quest for a hidden profession. Hidden professions include Fairy Warrior, Fairy Shield Bearer, Fairy Marksman, Fairy Elementalist, Fairy Assassin, Fairy Paladin, and Fairy Summoner. Any player can accept a quest with a limit of 1 per day. The first person each day to complete their quest can change into the corresponding fairy hidden profession. This is completely true. Initially, most players doubted this information. After all, only the system's main cities could change or upgrade one's profession. How could a player's city do this? Let alone change or upgrade one's profession. How could they give someone a hidden profession? However, when the first system announcement sounded out in the Ling Tian city, China's players were once again sent into a frenzy. Ding! Congratulations, player number 1 Chicken, for completing the quest given by the Fairy's Archer Elder and obtaining the hidden profession Fairy Marksman. Each hidden profession can only be obtained by 1 player per day. Players above LV 50 who have not yet completed their profession upgrade can take 1 quest per day. We encourage players to continue working hard. Did you hear that? Hidden profession. You really can obtain a hidden profession. Get out of my way. I'm going to take a quest. I'll kill whoever tries to block me. Hidden profession. My heart's about to explode from my chest. Woo-woo! Oh heavens! Oh earth! Why have I already done my profession upgrade? Why? It's not fair. Why can't those who have done their profession upgrade accept a quest? It's not fair. Arg, why did I have to do my profession upgrade already? Who can tell me how to reverse my profession upgrade? Hidden professions were incredibly tempting, and they were not something that high-level equipment and super potions could compare to. This was because hidden professions meant more power, potential, and prestige. A low-level player with trash equipment and a hidden profession would still have a sense of superiority over players with normal professions dressed in exquisite equipment. According to the class change hall's notice, although almost anyone could take the quest, only 1 hidden profession for each class could be obtained every day, 7 in total. With the amount of people in China, the chances of succeeding in obtaining a hidden profession were like winning the lottery. However, when a player obtained a hidden profession, with extreme admiration and envy, everyone else also felt that they had a chance as well. As such, countless players madly rushed to the class change hall, under the massive temptation from the hidden professions. 100 gold coins was nothing. The Fairy Clan's 10 elders outclassed the Azure Dragon City, and the Forgotten City's class trainers in every way, giving players some of the Fairy Clan's power, and changing their profession to the corresponding fairy profession was something incredibly easy for them. The fairy professions were naturally stronger than normal professions, but not by too much. Under the instructions from Li Xiaoshui, the Fairy Clan's elders were able to perfectly control how much power they gave to the players. At Ling Tian City's south side, the residential district, there were already countless players standing outside the railings, staring dumbly. The south side was closer to the fairy forest, and the air here made them feel like they were in heaven, their bodies in a state of total relaxation. Moreover, they were unable to turn their eyes away from the residential buildings in front of them. The style of the buildings completely defied what they were used to, and the gardens in the air defied all natural laws. They mystically hummed like a marvelous rainbow in the air, crossing paths with the island in the air as well as with the scenic elevator, All of these things could only be seen in movies, but they were right there in front of their eyes. Moreover, they were part of the residential district, meaning they could all be bought. As long as one had enough money, they could live in these magical houses. All of these were the amazing works made by the dwarves. Apologies, dear friends, these houses are not for sale yet. A beautiful and pure fairy beauty elegantly smiled as she spoke. Then when will they be for sale? Can't you give us a specific time? The crowd of players impatiently asked. Some were so desperate that their faces were completely red, wishing that they could immediately buy a house and live in it. They will be for sale after Ling Tian City's grand opening tomorrow. Dear friends, please do not be impatient. We invite you all to come to the grand opening tomorrow, the fairy beauty said as she smiled. Can we sign the contract now? Money isn't a problem. A chubby man wailed out from within the crowd. Apologies, we're unable to do that right now. I believe it should be possible after the grand opening tomorrow. If you would like to pre-order a house, you can line up here. The order in which pre-orders will be taken will be based on the line. The fairy beauty continued to smile. As she spoke, a massive line appeared before her. Because players were all desperate to be near the front, there were hundreds of collisions every second. A number that could shock people to death as the player's average level passed LV50. The number of people in Azure Dragon City gradually fell. Today, the numbers at Azure Dragon City reached an all-time high, because 99.99999% of these players were all there for the teleportation channel to Ling Tian City. On the very first day it was opened, the number of people entering Ling Tian City was a monstrous figure. Currently, when players met each other, the standard greeting was, "Did you buy any? How many did you buy?" Some were delirious with joy, and others were depressed, such as, "Hello, what sort of equipment? Oh, you're a player from the Yen Huang Alliance? Sorry, but we won't be selling any equipment to you." "You're not selling? Why not? Why not? You have the face to ask why not." The manager of the equipment shop, Kaidi, was furious. "Who was it that wanted to destroy our Ling Tian City for no reason?" "Huh? Who was it? Who was it? Tell me why I should goddamn sell to you." The players nearby smirked as they looked over. That's right. Back then, it was the Yen Huang Alliance who had led the attacks against the yet-to-be-completed Ling Tian City. If it wasn't for Ling Tian City's incredible defense, it would have been completely obliterated. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Yen Huang Alliance and the other guilds that had attacked were irreconcilable enemies with Ling Tian City. Why should they sell exquisite equipment to their enemies? It was already good enough for them not to immediately kick the Yen Huang Alliance players out. The Yen Huang Alliance player could only walk away dejectedly. Potion shop. Aren't you from the Golden Age Alliance? I'm sorry, but we'd rather throw out all of our stock than sell to you. Please get out of my sight. Crystal shop. Oh, you're from the Black Flames Alliance? The door's over there. You can show yourself out. Tailor shop. Scram. Gourmet plaza. Dogs and all players who participated in the attack aren't allowed in. Although if the dog is cute enough and friendly enough, we might let it in. Yen Huang Alliance headquarters. Long Tianyun's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, suppressing his rage as he coldly listened to the report from Flame Shadow. Right now, almost no players are interested in the Forgotten City anymore. They're all rushing to Ling Tian City. Everything in the report I just gave about Ling Tian City was completely true. None of it was false or embellished. I don't know how they did it, but they have information on all of the players and all of the guilds. They're refusing to sell to any player belonging to a guild that attacked the new city, and they immediately chased them away. Flame Shadow spoke as he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He could already feel Long Tianyun's rage. Long Tianyun had been venting all this time about the loss and humiliation he had suffered. Now that this had happened, he could only imagine how furious Long Tianyun would be. Where did they get all of those things? This is impossible! Long Tianyun roared as he gnashed his teeth. You can't even buy those things at the royal city! How could they have so much gold-grade equipment? What a joke! What a joke! At first, I also thought that it was a joke, but it's the truth, Flame Shadow said fearfully. Now, there are more and more players who are equipping gold-grade equipment, have super crystals, and have those high-grade potions, but our Yin Huang Alliance was unable to buy anything. If this goes on, are you all idiots? Long Tianyun's face darkened as he yelled. Haven't you asked some players to buy some for you? Of course we thought of that, but... Flame Shadow lowered his head. No matter if it's the equipment sold at Ling Tian City, the crystals, or the potions, they can only be used by the buyer at the store or the seller at the pawn shop, so it cannot be transferred or traded with another player. However, if someone is determined to transfer or sell it to someone else, they need to go to the potion shop and buy an unsealing potion, which unlocks the seal on the item or equipment. A single drop can unlock the seal on a single item or equipment, and a single drop of unsealing water costs 10 million gold. Long Tianyun's body shook and almost vomited out blood. This discussion happened within all of the guilds that had attacked the new city. From that instant, they tasted the bitter fruit of their greed. By nighttime, there were players all over China who were covered with gold-grade equipment. It was so common in fact that gold-grade equipment seemed as common as cabbages. Those who did not have gold equipment on them were looked at with condescending glares, as if they were looking at scum. If a person didn't have any gold equipment, it was evident that they were part of a guild that had attacked the new city. No matter if it was the Yin Huang Alliance or the 30 guilds that had allied together to attack the new city, they were all incredibly powerful. The players that belonged to these guilds were all proud and haughty. If they saw a training spot they liked, they would take it for themselves. However, now they wished they could cover their faces when walking around, and they picked training spots as far away as possible from other people. The glory they once had was now a massive humiliation. However, this was the opposite for normal players. Before, they would always tremble when they saw players from powerful guilds. It was normal for their training spots to be taken, and they didn't even dare to resist. However, now... Oh? Isn't that person from the so-and-so guild? Luckily I'm not from that guild, otherwise I'd still have a set of crappy equipment. How embarrassing. HM? You want to take our training spot? You think we'd be afraid of you? Those in copper-grade equipment can abuse those in iron-grade equipment. Those in silver-grade equipment can abuse those in copper-grade equipment. This elder has a full set of gold equipment, super crystals, clothes that give bonus stats, and potions that make me invincible. It'd be incredibly easy to beat you down. When all of the other players had changed into a full set of gold-grade equipment with super crystals and their bags filled with high-grade potions, the players from the Yin Huang Alliance, Golden Age Alliance, Black Flames Alliance, Savage Wolves Gang, etc., could only stare in envy. Wherever they went, they were looked down upon condescendingly. It was a horrible feeling. In just an instant, the hearts of these players who were in the large guilds trembled, and they started to quietly leave their guilds. There were more and more of them, and the guild simply couldn't do anything to stop them. As for Ling Tian City, it had become the focus of the entire world. All of the countries were making the same complaint, that Ling Tian City was destroying the balance of the game. The reason was very simple. Ling Tian City was endlessly manufacturing gold-grade equipment and selling them for such a cheap price. This made gold-grade equipment almost a commodity in the China region. What's more, there were also the high-grade potions and the super crystals. In the future, when there were international battles, almost the entirety of China would be dressed in gold-grade equipment with super crystals, and everyone would possess potions that made them near invincible. How were the other countries supposed to keep playing? It would be strange if they could remain calm. However, Ling Tian City completely ignored these objections. The fairies and dwarves were preparing for the grand opening, and the leaders of the city had a very simple but important job: counting money. Up until now, Ling Tian City has been open for 15 hours. During these 15 hours, more than 350 million players have visited the city. What's more, there were countless players who were unable to come in because of the population limit. Otherwise, this number would be much higher. We earned 17.5 billion gold from teleportation fees, and we sold 980 million pieces of gold-grade equipment. Perhaps I should explain this. Although trading in the virtual world is incredibly fast, it's not as fast as the speed of light. More than half of the people were not able to buy anything, otherwise this number also would have been much higher. We earned 774.2 billion gold from selling equipment, 86 billion gold from the potion shop, 165 billion gold from the crystal shop, 9.5 billion gold from the smithy, 66.9 billion gold from the tailor's shop, 9.4 billion gold from the class change hall, and everything in the gourmet plaza is free, so we did not earn anything from that. Right now, the total amount we've earned so far is 1.119 trillion gold. According to our agreement, you can decide how to split the money for this first day. Congratulations, Lady of the City. On the first day alone you've earned half of what my Li Family Financial Group possesses, more than half of what the Yuan Family Financial Group possesses, and almost 7 times more than what your father possesses. Rest assured, I've checked over every single number countless times, and I definitely didn't mistakenly add zeros or remove decimal points. After saying this, Li Xiaoshui saw Yunmeng Xian's entire body freeze. Even as the big miss of the Li Family Financial Group, someone who possessed an immense fortune and did not have much interest in money anymore, she almost fainted when she saw those numbers. The Li Family Financial Group had developed for over 100 years, and it was acknowledged to be the biggest financial group in all of China with more than $2 trillion in assets. And yet, the new city, on the day it had opened, had earned more than 1 trillion gold. As for the costs, they were ridiculously low. The potions were made from the fairies' Dew of Dawn, Dew of Dusk, and Fountain Water. A single drop could produce one massive vat. A single vat could produce thousands, if not thousands of bottles, and each bottle contained 100 drops. Costs? What costs? Moreover, the materials required to make the gold-grade equipment could be found all over the Forgotten Continent. What was difficult was creating the equipment. All of the materials had been brought from the Nameless Ridge and the Fairy Forest, so they did not have to purchase any of it. After finding a mountain containing a large mine, the dwarves could smelt the entire mountain, producing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of equipment every minute. As for the advanced and super crystals, it was as easy as making candy for the dwarves. In total, the costs were less than 20 billion gold. Taking away the costs. On the first day it had opened, Ling Tian City had made a profit of over 1 trillion gold. On the very first day! Even the incredibly confident Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui hadn't expected such a thing. They had so much money that they could pave roads with it. Big sister is brilliant. 1 trillion gold in one day? Am I dreaming? Yunmeng Xian muttered. She simply couldn't believe that this was true. No, it's not in one day. It's in 15 hours. At this rate, it's likely that our revenue for the first 24 hours will break through 1.5 trillion. Li Xiaoshui sat down next to Yunmeng Xian as she smiled, a red glow of excitement on her face. Although it's incredibly shocking, if you think about it, it's actually quite reasonable. After all, the best way to make money in this world is through monopolization. The things that we've monopolized will never go out of date or out of fashion. After all, they're the most important things in this game. Moreover, even if the other main cities know what we're selling, they're unable to do the same thing because our Ling Tian city has the dwarves, who have disappeared for over 10,000 years, and the fairies, who have disappeared for thousands of years. The dwarves and the fairy clan are in our Ling Tian city. The equipment and potions that they can create are things that the humans of the Forgotten Continent will never be able to compete with, and they can't even copy them. What's even more important is that the dwarves and fairies are incredibly grateful to Ling Tian city, and they have thrown all of their passion into the city, and will never betray it. Taking into consideration that we have a monopoly on all of these goods, it's completely normal to be able to reap these profits. Moreover, as time goes on, these profits won't decrease, but will rather instead increase. Li Xiaoshui's eyes sparkled with light as she spread out her hand and explained to Yunming Xian. The equipment at the Forgotten City are split into LV50, LV55, LV60, LV65. All of the equipment sold by main cities are in 5-level intervals, but our Ling Tian city has equipment of every level. When players level up, do you think they will still use their old, under-leveled equipment when faced with such cheap gold-grade equipment? As for the potion shop, I'm sure that doesn't need much explanation. After using the Fairy Clan's potions, the players will definitely develop a dependence on them. Do you think they'd be willing to buy potions from main cities anymore? Plus, even the normal potions at the main cities are twice as expensive. Apart from Ling Tian City, they won't be able to buy potions that can greatly increase their maximum stats from anywhere else. The only thing that is affected by the effluxion of time is the crystal shop. After all, crystals can be used forever, and a super crystal can last one until they are max level, unless they obtain even higher grade crystals from monsters. As such, the sale of crystals will gradually plateau, but crystals are only one small part of the revenue generated by Ling Tian City. Our Ling Tian City's teleport scrolls are also very expensive, 50 gold, which is 100 times that of the main cities. However, because of the monopolies we have, this price will not affect the flow of players into the city at all, and will instead continuously bring great benefits. Furthermore, the Gourmet Plaza has not been officially opened yet. With the dwarves' talent in cooking, it'll be difficult to stop the Gourmet Plaza from becoming a massive success. There's also the Entertainment District and Relaxation District. The facilities created by the dwarves combined with the aura of nature from the fairy forest will be more than enough to satisfy people. Also, the places that we're leasing players in the Guild District and Business District naturally have high prices. With the number of players entering Ling Tian City, people would be suspicious if we didn't charge 2 to 3 times more than main cities. There's also the Residential District. Real estate in the virtual world will always give the greatest profit margins. Even I want to immediately live in the houses that the dwarves constructed, and I'm not at all worried that they won't be sold out. Those with money are usually willing to spend as much as we ask for on things that can allow them to live comfortably and give them a sense of prestige and nobility. Lady of the city, how should we price the houses? Don't make it too low. You can be in charge of that. I'm sure you're much more experienced in that regard than myself, Yunming Xian said as she rubbed her forehead, still wondering whether she was dreaming. She knew that Ling Chen had given her the entirety of Ling Tian City, including the dwarves and fairies, so that she could win her bet with her father. However, on the first day that the city was open, she was completely shocked. Only now did she realize what a massive present Ling Chen had given her. No! Although I'm the lady of the city, this city belongs to everyone and not just myself. This title only means that I have the responsibility of further developing Ling Tian City. Xiao Shui, I think we should expand the new city as quickly as possible. Yuan Ming Xian stood up as she announced her thoughts. Expand the new city? Li Xiaoshui's eyes lit up. Ming Xian, I was thinking the exact same thing. Yesterday, Ling Tian City looked extremely large, but now it seems far too small. That's right, it's too small. I underestimated the abilities of our dwarf and fairy friends as well as the impact that our city would have. Currently, our size is the greatest limiting factor for the development of the new city. This is all because I was too short-sighted before, Yuan Ming Xian said in pity. No, it's not just you. Li Xiaoshua smiled as she shook her head. I was the same. I'm sure that anyone, before today, wouldn't have felt that Ling Tian City was too small. After today, they would all find that Ling Tian City seemed much smaller than they had originally thought. Yuan Ming Xian looked up as an idea surfaced in her mind. Expanding to the north isn't possible because the land 5 kilometers to the north no longer belongs to the fairies, but to the Forgotten City. However, this is not an issue for the east, west, and south. We can expand 50 kilometers or so to the east and about 60 kilometers to the west. Chief Greenwood said that these regions all belong to the fairies and that they can affect some rules. They can use the fairy fountain's water to purify territories belonging to monsters, making it so that monsters will no longer appear there. As for the south, Yuan Ming Xian paused as she said, we can directly extend Ling Tian City into the fairy forest. Li Xiaoshue froze in surprise, and after thinking for a moment, her eyes lit up. A city within a forest? It's impossible in the real world to combine a flourishing city with the refreshing aura of nature. However, in the virtual world with the dwarves' talent and wisdom, we can definitely achieve it. Li Xiaoshue started to become excited. Just thinking about it makes me impatient to see it completed. If even I'm like this, it will be much more so for other people. Ming Xian, what a brilliant idea. I can't wait at all. Let's go and talk to the dwarves and fairies immediately. This matter isn't that urgent. Yuan Ming Xian grabbed Li Xiaoshui, who was just about to rush off. Let's first prepare for the city's grand opening. Tomorrow morning is the grand opening, and I don't know if everyone has finished preparing yet. This is especially so for the Skyfall dynasty. They seemed quite reluctant the other day, and I don't know if they've changed their mind. The Skyfall dynasty won't be an issue at all. Li Xiaoshui smiled widely. Before today, it was possible that they would change their mind. However, after seeing the Ling Tian City's performance, I'm sure that even if you try to chase them away with a broom, they'll beg you to stay. In 2 hours, everyone will be gathered at the central meeting hall. Beautiful and blessed lady of the city, please don't be late. It was nearly dawn, but the new city was just as crowded. No matter where one went, there were seas of people everywhere. It was almost to the point where Ling Tian City, which was not small at all, nearly exploded. What? 1 trillion gold? This was the first time Ling Tian City had used its central meeting hall, and it was filled with roars of shock. Everyone present, apart from winter of that year and 100 miles of ice, was incredibly rich. However, 1 trillion gold, that was 1 trillion gold. What was even scarier was that this was just from the first day. That was the figure from 2 hours ago. Now, it's much more than that. Moreover, less than half of the new city's enterprises have been opened. If they were all opened, it's possible to earn even 3 or 4 trillion in a single day, Li Xiaoshui calmly said. Everyone's faces were completely comical. Some were frozen and some were completely twisted, but everyone's hearts rapidly pounded. 1 trillion gold in less than 1 day. Was there anything more ridiculous in the world? 1 trillion gold in 1 day, then 10 days. 100 days. 1 year. Oh heavens, oh heavens. Xiaoqi covered her mouth, completely dumbfounded by the numbers. So much. 2 airs cute and lovely eyes were wide open as she muttered softly, That. Winter of that year tightly grabbed his clothes, his face red from excitement as he trembled, and said, Beautiful and noble Lady Yun, who is also our chief financial officer, although we didn't participate in the construction of the city, we did protect it for a long time. I wonder if the boss and I can have even a little bit of that, even just a little bit. Everyone looked over in condescension. Yunming Xian smiled elegantly as she slowly spoke with an expression of gratitude. If it weren't for winter and 100 miles, it's possible that the city wouldn't even exist. As such, you are Ling Tian City's esteemed guests, and we can never thank you enough. We know that you need some gold, so Xiao Shui and I have decided to give Winter and 100 miles 100 million gold. 100 million gold? Winter of that year's mouth fell open as his eyes rolled back and fell backwards as he fainted. Beside him, 100 miles of ice lowered his head in embarrassment. It was simply too shameful sitting with that guy. Yunming Xian smiled as she turned to look at Xiao Qiufeng. Big brother Xiao, have the preparations for the Battle Alliance to move into the Ling Tian city tomorrow been completed? Xiao Qiufeng nodded. We've finished. Yunming Xian turned to look at Skyfall, against the sky, and judging sky. Then, Skyfall Dynasty's 3 heavenly kings. No problem. No problem at all. Before Yunming Xian had finished speaking, Against the Sky had already cried out emotionally. There was a solemn expression on his face as he vigorously beat his chest, saying, Rest assured, Lady Yun, there'll be no issues at all. As long as Lady Yun gives the order, we'll immediately move to Ling Tian City with not a single person less. In the future, with a single command from Lady Yun, we'll go up mountains of knives and go down pots of oil without even frowning. Yes. Judging Sky hurriedly nodded. Yes, it's like that. Tomorrow, we'll move into the new city per your instructions. Skyfall awkwardly said. Before, they were extremely unwilling to move into the new city, and they had only agreed because of Gu Qinghan's order. However, after seeing the potential of Ling Tian City, and how they had completely eclipsed even the system's royal city, they felt as if everything they knew was crumbling. With the overall figures of Ling Tian City, whether it was the flow of players or the speed at which money came in, they were extremely willing to move to this heaven-defying city and become an elder-level pillar guild. Without even thinking, they could imagine the future prospects of the Skyfall dynasty. They might even be able to surpass the Yin Huang Alliance. What's more, Lady Yun promised that upon moving into the Ling Tian City, the entire alliance's equipment and potions would all be provided free of charge. Moreover, each of the leaders would be given a massive gift for free, as well as one of those villas that countless rich people were desperate for. This wasn't them making a sacrifice for the new city, but the new city providing them with countless blessings. At this moment, there was only one thought in their minds. Big Sister is brilliant.